Hello, everybody, and welcome into my latest live broadcast. It's the 9th of November, 2023. It's Thursday. My name is Carey Holzman. Thanks, you guys, for tuning in. Okay. I find I have to repeat myself over and over and over again in order for things that I say to be heard, and it's driving me slightly insane. Actually, I think we passed insane about 3 years ago. So here I am again, repeating myself. Does anybody in the chat room know what I'm going to say? I'm just curious if anybody's been listening. There is one trick that will fix 90% of all computer problems. And I want to test you guys to see if you know what it is. Because I keep showing it over and over and over and over and over and over, and I've talked about it. What is the one thing that is most likely going to fix most computer problems? And this has been the same since the very first time I touched a computer back in the 80s. I'm going to give you a little hint. Yesterday, when this was not updating properly, we got the error message. I mentioned I've never seen the error message from Microsoft's Windows Update before, stating that we needed updates, but none were available. Like, it didn't make any sense. I decided that I was going to run memtest86 on it because it suggested when we did a Google search, a whole bunch of very complicated steps came up and multiples, not just one thing, but like 7 different, entirely different things. Reset the Windows service, a corrupt file, scan FSC, all this other absolutely overcomplicated, unrelated, waste of time, overthinking nonsense. When I said it's likely a Microsoft problem. However, I've never seen it before. So this is all a brand new build, so the timing on this is really bad, right? So maybe there's something wrong with the build, and then the chat room has to overcomplicate, right? Thank you, guys. As I'm struggling to think of the problem, I can always rely on the chat room to provide me with overly complicated, overthought solutions that have nothing at all to do with the problem. I am asking you to stop it. Someone says, could it be the solid-state drive? When we have a problem like that, it could be anything. It could be the motherboard, the solid-state drive. It could be the RAM, the processor. It could be overheating. Oh, that's the one you guys like to jump to all the time. Oh, it's overheating. Very rarely is that the problem. Okay. I brought a computer in a couple years ago that nobody could fix. You guys remember this? It kept resetting randomly. Nobody could fix it. It's been to 3 different shops. They said, Carey, would you look at this? Nobody can figure this out. Well, we got a PC that's resetting randomly. Could it be the reset button is shorting out? Yes. We had a Windows 10 that would not install on a brand new build. And the customer changed every single part, the motherboard, the CPU, the memory, the solid-state drive. Every single part, even the power supply and the case. And Windows 10 still wouldn't install. How is this possible? This is impossible. This is where that overthinking psycho comes out in the regular folks. Somebody set the date wrong in the BIOS. And so when they changed the motherboard, but they put the old SSD back into it, when Windows went to reload, to continue the install, it programmed the date back to how it was, putting the date wrong as the previous motherboard had, and they were forever stuck in a loop. Okay, am I making a point yet? There's something I'm going to tell you that you aren't going to remember. And my challenge for you is to retain this. My challenge for you is to stop with the quick digestion of information. It's like junk food. You guys are just taking this in, very little of it sticking, and within a matter of weeks or months, it's all forgotten about. When we talked about all the distribution issues at the ports during the pandemic, and we were trying to get stuff in, and all the ships were backed up at like Long Beach. Do you even remember that? Do you have any recollection, besides me just mentioning it now? When is the last time you thought about the flow of goods into the country that has since been alleviated during all that suffering we had just waiting on ships sitting at the ports, waiting for goods? Do you remember it? I'm sure you remember it. And I'm sure until I just brought it up now, it completely evacuated your mind. It wasn't that long ago. Okay, so my challenge for each and every one of you, my challenge for you is to remember, when you're diagnosing a computer problem, keep it simple. Always start with the easy things first. You will drive yourself crazy overthinking it. You're going to work 10 times harder than you need to work. You're going to take 10 times longer than it needs to take to fix. And all you're going to do is overly complicate something that is incredibly simple. So you start with simple. I challenge you to watch any computer repair video on YouTube and see how often the solutions are easy. It's pretty rare that a solution is complicated. So when we talk about regular PC repair, even in many cases laptop repair, pick any channel you want, go back as far back in time or as recent as you want, and pay attention. At the end of that video, what was the solution? Now, many people could say, well, yes, once you know the solution, anybody could say it was easy. But if you started with easy, you'd have gotten to the solution a lot faster. That's my point. When I first, when I didn't quite know what I was going to do for a living, when I was much younger, I thought I was going to be an auto mechanic. And one of the things the instructor said, I'll never forget, was when you're diagnosing something, always look at the simple things first. So for example, this is the example the instructor used. If your car won't start, you think, I got a bad battery, I need to replace my battery. Not necessarily. Well, you could think, I've got a bad alternator, and the alternator's not charging the battery, so I need a new alternator. Not necessarily. I could have a bad regulator. Look, you're overthinking it. Maybe you just need to tighten the alternator belt. Maybe it's nothing more than a loose belt. No parts are needed. You don't have to go and spend any money. You don't have to run to the auto parts store or figure out how to get there when your car doesn't work. And this is the 1980s, by the way. Okay, so belts weren't all there were some serpentine belts, but for the most part, belts were just that, and you had to get like a crowbar or something and pull up on the alternator and then use the other hand to tighten the bolt down to keep it from moving. And you push on it in the middle and see how much play you've got. It was all just kind of by feel that we did this. You'd be surprised how often that dead battery was a result of nothing more than a loose alternator belt. And it happens more often than a dead battery or a bad alternator happens. Now again, with serpentine belts, that kind of changed, in time, but the rule has stayed the same. KISS. Keep it super simple. Now, it's also been told that stands for keep it simple, stupid. But I don't like the degradation of that tone. I would much prefer keep it super simple. Say it to yourself over and over every day until you don't have to think about it anymore, that it happens just automatically on its own. It pops in there. Keep it super simple. Keep it super simple. No matter how complex or how overbearing a job might seem, your overthinking it is making it worse. And anybody who has to work around you, you're making it worse for them too. You'll do everybody, and most importantly, yourself, a favor by taking a step back and trying to imagine what could be the simplest solution to solve this problem. That is always where you start. And if it is, you'll get to the end faster in most cases. If it's a complicated problem, It's still going to be a complicated problem. But since complicated problems don't happen near as often, your odds of this being successful are much better than your odds of overcomplicating it and taking longer. I can tell you that from over 30 years of experience in this industry. You will appear to be a genius to people when you underthink it instead of overthink it. It's the exact opposite of what you think. Even if that's the thing you have to keep telling yourself to retrain your brain. The minute you go down that path of diagnostic, you think of what I'm saying right now and say, Carey says I'm thinking wrong. So let me take a minute and do the opposite of what I'm doing. Or what would be an easier approach? Is there something more basic? I'm sure many of us have called technical support. And when you call them, one of the first questions they ask you is, have you turned it off and back on again? And many of us are like, well, of course I turned it back off. That is your clue right there. When they say, have you turned it off and back on again? What you should be hearing is, have you thought of checking easy things first? It doesn't have to be that particular easy thing. It could be a series of easy things. My system doesn't boot up very fast anymore. It takes forever. What's wrong with it? Could it be Windows? And you're going to go online and you're going to get a bunch of long threads of messages of people saying, well, type this and type that and go in here and scan this and scan that and do this and DISM that. And you will spend the next 3 days doing all of this stuff that will likely damage your computer, where you're going to have to do a complete reinstall. You're going to jack it up so bad that we know fixing it. And the solution to the problem in most cases is you left a USB drive plugged in and your system's getting hung up on the USB drive when it's booting. And if all you did was follow basic steps and say, okay, well, what's simple? Well, simple would be unplug anything from the computer that's not needed. Unplug that USB drive. Unplug the printer. Unplug anything you don't have to have. Start the computer up. Hey, it boots. You'll solve that problem in 45 seconds. Now it's up to you. You can go through life like Sisyphus, pushing this rock up a hill that just keeps falling back down again. And you can go through that over and over and over again, but I will not join you on that journey. If there's one message that I'm here to share with you, it's to encourage you to think the opposite way that most of you are thinking. That when you see a problem, your challenge isn't to find the most complicated fix. Your challenge should be, what is the easiest fix for this? And it shouldn't be going to Google and looking through 7 possible steps, each one detailing a whole bunch of steps that will take you hours to go through. Because that's what I was presented with yesterday when we ran into this problem. And the problem with me is I started to consider it. I would normally never consider that. Without your influence, that is not anything that would have entered my mind. So when I searched for it on Google and I showed you guys, this is what Google is saying, all of that, if we would have followed it, not only was a complete waste of time, it would have jeopardized the integrity of a new install. And then I'd have to reinstall. Like this isn't my computer, this is going to a customer. I'm not going to give a customer a jacked up operating system. It's something I fudged around with in order to fix a problem that didn't make any sense. All I had to do was be patient and wait. And how many times have I told you guys that? When you're doing a BIOS update or when we're installing Windows updates, leave it alone. Stop messing with it. Let it do its thing. Can you imagine if you're trying to do your job and your boss keeps, hey, why don't you do it this way? Why don't you do that? Why are you doing that? Let me do my job. You're distracting me. You're slowing me down. I'm losing my focus. It's like you're sitting here and you're counting a bunch of money. 185,216, 185,217, 108. Someone goes 18, 42, 75, 150. I've just lost my play. I have to start all over again. Right? It's incredibly frustrating when people do that. But if what you're suggesting is simple, different story. And that's my challenge for you. When you're helping anybody, if you're volunteering any help, your challenge is, what is the easiest possible solution? And I mean easy, like unplug it, plug it back in, wait a couple hours. Something simple like after the broadcast yesterday, I took my memtest 86 flash drive. I plugged it in here, suspecting it was a Microsoft problem. And I knew 64 gigs of RAM was going to take a while to run. So I let this run, and I let it run through 2 passes. It took about 3 hours. And when I came back, I had a couple of messages from people that said, hey, Microsoft Update is giving me the same message. It's not just you. All I had to do is be patient. I got some feedback. Regardless, even if I didn't get that message, once the test was done, after 2 pass-throughs, I shut the computer off and thought, well, let me just try it again. Now that some time has passed and I know that the memory has passed, I went back to Windows Update, and wouldn't you know it, a bunch of updates came up. I mean, I knew when we updated it, we only got like 4 updates. This is a brand new Windows 10 install. It should have like 10 or 12 updates minimum. So it was puzzling to me why we weren't getting the other updates. And I've never seen that message before that says, you know, that your PC is missing important updates, and then you check for updates and it says there are no updates. It's contradicting itself. That suggests to me there's a problem with Windows Update. But many people will overthink that and think it's a problem with the Windows Update configuration on the computer, whether it's Windows Update files being corrupted. Any way that you can overthink it is what people are the first to do. And this is why, and I will remind you again, whenever you call tech support, what's the first thing they're going to ask you? Have you unplugged it and plugged it back in again? Have you turned it off and back on again? And it's not that specific step. It's that specific attitude. Have you checked the easy things before you called us? So you could save yourself a lot of time. You could save yourself a lot of frustration. You could save me a lot of frustration by not volunteering overly complex, overthought solutions to something that has a simple problem of, hey, Carey, maybe there's something wrong with the Windows Server, and rather than potentially damage a brand new build that doesn't suggest anything's wrong with it, maybe just wait a couple hours and try again and see if it's a problem with Microsoft and take it from there. Why do we have to be so active as to think like we're putting out a fire and become so impatient that we start doing, really, to a customer's computer, it's disrespectful in my opinion. It is absolutely disrespectful to disregard somebody's configuration and software, to start throwing the kitchen sink at it. And your frustration is your problem. It's not the customer's problem. And if you're frustrated, that is your sign to walk away from it. Just walk away from it. Get your mind on something else. And it's amazing how when you could just be sitting there watching TV, that the answer just pops in the back of your mind. And is just that. And then you pop up and check it, and you'd be surprised how many times that has worked for me over and over and over again on those really particularly difficult problems. In most cases, those are the ones that have the easiest solution, and it's being so overthought. We just refuse. We absolutely refuse to take one step back and see what's right in front of us. So my challenge for all of you, always remember, anytime you are presented with a computer problem, and for any problem in life, really, what is the easiest solution? Always do that first. And you're going to find that you're solving problems like nobody else in your world. People are going to see you as some magic problem solver when all you're doing is underthinking it. Everybody else around you is overthinking it. All you're doing is joining in on the noise and the static. And yeah, eventually you guys will get there. I don't know how long it'll take you, but at least if there's a complicated problem at play, this isn't going to slow you down any. And as I mentioned, if you watch any computer repair video on YouTube, whether it's modern or from years past, look at how often the solution is something incredibly simple. You'll see, I'm not making this up. Look at Craig Salazar's channel. Look at the repairs he does. Look at how sometimes he'll overthink it, and the solution will be something incredibly simple that he probably should have started with. I do it too. Look how long it took me to figure out the simple date problem in the BIOS. So, and as much as I'm reminding you to keep it simple, I'm reminding myself, because I have fallen victim to that overthinking logic simply because I'm surrounded by a bunch of people that overthink. And then it starts, it starts being something I pick up on, and it's not a good habit to pick up. So I'm pushing back against the crowd, because the crowd is, for the majority, overthinking. The suggestions that people are volunteering are overthought most of the time. And I'm pushing back against that. Now, instead of pushing back against it, I'm asking you to cooperate with me so I don't have to push you back, and take a step back voluntarily. You're going to find through your own experience, this advice is the single best advice anybody will ever give you in solving any problem that you ever face. Car problem, relationship problem, computer problem. Look for the simplest solution, and you will often find it first, most of the time. So with that, let me say hello to everybody in the chat. I had to get that off my chest. It's killing me. I have been saying this for years and years and years and years and years, and I don't know why it's not sticking. I have no idea. But I'm hoping by making a video specifically dedicated about this, that maybe if I keep repeating it over and over and over again during this video, maybe after the video, tomorrow, next week, next month, you'll remember it. That's my goal. But it requires your cooperation. And if you refuse to do it, I'm going to have to start ignoring the chat room when it comes to suggestions, because it's sending me down the yellow brick road, and I don't want to go down there. I want to stay in reality, and I want to stay focused on my problem, and I want to fix things the way I fix them without the influence of being dragged down some side alley somewhere in a complete opposite direction of where I want to go. And I have personally been allowing that too much. It started with me just humoring you guys to say, I'd see some ridiculous suggestion. Sorry, no offense, but I'd see something that is just completely preposterous. And I'll say, okay, let's try it. And then before you know it, I'm taking all these suggestions and I've lost my way, and I'm not following my own advice anymore. So my own patience with this, I think, has, I feel like I've proven a point here. I can take all of your suggestions from all these people online. How often do those suggestions work? Every once in a while, we get a great suggestion, but most of them are just crap. They're just crap. You see it. You're there with me. You see the people just don't get it, and they still volunteer suggestions that have nothing to do with what we're working on. So you'd think, out of respect, if they didn't really have a clue, they'd ask more questions so they could better understand it, or they wouldn't make any suggestions so as not to add to the noise and the chaos of the problem-solving process. So I want you to think about what I've just said, and think about the HP computer that I was asking for you guys to fix. Give me the solution. And I've just given you a giant hint, right? And then we're going to come back. We will revisit the HP computer probably next week. I should have some time. Take a step back. Think about it. All right. So I know people's hearts are in the right place. Hey, I was just trying to help. The problem is you're not helping. It's the exact opposite of helping. It's like you're putting your foot on my head underwater and you're saying you're helping me not drown. Putting your foot on my head and holding my head underwater, how does that help me not drown? Maybe just stay clear. If you can't help, then maybe just stay clear. That's all I'm suggesting. All right, so let's just take a look. What am I missing in the chat here? Oh, and I just lost my chat. Here it is. It gets frustrating sometimes, guys. You want people to just see the obvious, and everybody wants to look at things that are small details that are irrelevant. It's crazy. It is a crazy sensation that is so common. It just doesn't make any sense. but you don't have to. It's voluntary. That is a voluntary behavior. 3D Everything has been a member now for 17 months. He says, hey, Uncle Carey, I'm still here and still learning a lot. Right on. Well, thank you for that, 3D Everything. And Charles Eslak, also a member for 17 months, renews membership. Thank you so much, Charles. Thank you to all the members that support here. Michael Dane Jr. is in the chat. He says a little about myself. I'm in IT for a college and local schools. He's been in IT over 20 years. Oh, right on. Well, that's great. SM says, Carey, you got old, and I'm your old subscriber. Well, you know, there's a lot of people who haven't made it to old. I wear old with pride. I have friends that are no longer with us who did not make it to old. And I expect in 20 years, I'm not going to think I'm old right now compared to when I look back 20 years from now. If I don't make it 20 years from now, well, I'll be very glad for the time I had. So old is a good thing. Old is something not everybody achieves. Old is a, first of all, it's a perspective. Anybody who's old is anybody that's older than you. And then, you know, anybody who's fat is anybody fatter than you, that kind of thing. It's all based on comparison. But I don't see the word old as a negative or derogatory term. I see it as, Carey, you're winning. Carey, you're succeeding. Carey, you're still in the fight. You're back in the ring. You're still throwing punches. You're still standing up and fully independent. You have full, complete independence. What more could you want? That is the ultimate, I think, as a human being, is to be able to be fully independent. Rely on nobody to be able to go out, make your way in the world, and be self-sufficient. And the older I get, the more efficient I get at that, the better I get at that. So I can't wait to see what ideas I come up with in the years ahead as I continue to evolve and learn and grow. It doesn't happen to anybody young. David Graham contributes $5 in Super Chat. He says, I'm glad I didn't pipe in yesterday. I feel smart now. Well, yes, unless you know for a fact what the answer is, or unless your suggestion is incredibly simple, like, have you tried unplugging it and plugging it back in again? You know, something that hasn't already been tried. Then just searching Google and providing a copy and paste is the laziest, most unthoughtful, inconsiderate thing you could possibly do, unless you are an experienced computer technician and you know for a fact that you've seen this problem before and this is the thing that fixed it for you. Otherwise, you're not helping anybody. You're getting in the way. You're slowing us down. You're adding to the chaos. It's maddening. And that's why, if in the future you notice I start ignoring the chat room during diagnosis, it's because people are still just copying and pasting Google searches. I could do that. You think I'm incapable of that? If I'm asking you if you're familiar. Have you experienced this? And if so, what have you done? If all you're going to do is go to Google and search and copy and paste, you're wasting my time and it's insulting. It's like I've come to you for a gourmet meal and you've never cooked a gourmet meal before. And you say, hey, Carey, I'll make you a gourmet meal. You volunteer. And I'm like, that's great. I'm looking forward to a gourmet meal. And I pay you all this money for a gourmet meal. And then what you do is you go on YouTube or you go on Google and you Google how to make a gourmet meal. You buy the ingredients, you make it, and you serve it to me. Do you think it's going to be good? If I say to you, I'll pay you $2,000 to play me a song on the piano, I could play you that song on the piano and you take my money and you've never played the piano before, but you Google how to play the piano, I'm going to want my $2,000 back because you lied to me, you misrepresented me, you BS'd me, and I'm offended that you disrespected me and all you cared about was yourself and taking the money. It takes practice. So if you're a piano player and you have experience playing the piano, if you're a cook and you're experienced making gourmet meals, then accept that offer by all means. But if all you're going to do is know nothing and go to Google for your answers, then you know nothing. And there's so many people that, especially younger people, who don't think they need to know anything because all they have to do is go to Google. Well, Google isn't going to give you any skill. Google isn't going to teach you the balance required to ride a bicycle. Google isn't going to teach you how to taste and season and cook properly, where the fire level needs to be set, and how to know the nuances of gourmet cooking. Google can show you which keys to press on the piano and when to press them, but actually doing it is a whole different event. It's a whole different experience from watching it. I mean, grab a piano, pull up a YouTube video that shows you how to play a pretty simple song. Say like Imagine by John Lennon. It's one of the simplest songs to play on a piano. Try it. It's so easy. I wonder how many months it'll take you before you get it down so it sounds right. So if all you're going to do, if your way of answering anybody's problem is going to Google, but you don't have any real experience, then you have no clue what you're talking about. You might as well just tell somebody, instead of Googling it for them, because you're not really helping them. You're not doing anything they can't do themselves. You're not providing an answer. You are lying to them. You are effectively sending them the message that this is the answer to your problem, without, in most cases, being full disclosure that all you did was Google that. You want that person to think you just came up with that on your own. Otherwise, you wouldn't do it. Otherwise, you'd say, hey, you know what? You could Google this term and look through the solutions. That would be honest. But when you copy and paste a Google solution that you yourself didn't write, that's simple plagiarism. And unless you make it clear, this is not my answer and I copy and pasted this from Google, then what you're telling me is you think I'm too stupid that I needed you to do that for me. It's just offensive every way around. So out of respect and courtesy, just common courtesy for your fellow human being, if you want to recommend Google, recommend it. But to copy and paste something on somebody else's behalf that you did not write and you did not disclose, hey, I just copied this from Google, then you're being less than honest. You're allowing somebody to infer that you just came up with that. Or you're inferring that you have some experience, that you know this solution fixes that problem. You've got experience with it. You've done that before. And rather than type it all out, you just copied and pasted it because it was easier. But just guessing, it's just really offensive. And I hope you don't go to a doctor that does that. I sincerely hope you don't go to any doctor that treats you that way. So, something to keep in mind before you offer suggestions to anybody to fix anything is to wonder, am I misleading them? Do I know what I'm talking about? And am I being fully honest about where the answer's coming from? I think people are better off helping themselves. So if I can say you should Google that, the reason I'm telling you is for you to learn. I don't want to spoon feed you answers. You won't get any smarter. And if you're spoon feeding, if that's what you think you're doing, is spoon feeding the solution to somebody, you're not helping them. You're enabling them to continue to be stupid. So, or to lack an experience that you're denying them. You're denying them that experience. When I do things here on camera and somebody says, Carey, you could have done that differently, or Carey, there was an answer on the screen you missed. Yeah, well, that's my experience. Why would you deny me that experience? I am sharing an experience with you. I'm not asking you to deny my experience. I think that's completely misinterpreted by many viewers. If I'm making mistakes, I'm sharing the mistake with you. I'm not asking you to correct it. I'm not asking you to tell me how I could have done it differently. I am simply saying, I am doing this on my bench. This is a project I'm working on. I'm a professional computer tech, and I want to share with you how I work. I'm not asking you for tips. I'm not asking you to help. I am teaching. I am saying, this is how I teach. These are my experiences, and these are real unscripted experiences, and I am sharing them with you. I'm not asking you to give me advice to avoid my experiences. What you're doing is a complete disservice to me to deny me my ability to have my experience. You understand what I'm saying? I want to be self-sufficient. I don't want to be spoon-fed. I don't want the answers handed to me unless somebody with experience can give me a solution that works when I'm trying to solve something and they can get me there a little quicker. But even then, I much prefer to get there on my own. You know, it's a state of pride. It's like, I know I could do this. If I can get there quicker sometimes, you know, if there's a balance of that, it's great. But if every single time you guys are able to provide the answer to me, I won't air these anymore, because that's like you solving every puzzle I try to put together. And you're not allowing me to use my brain to solve the puzzle. You want to tell me how to solve it. That's not what I'm here to do. I'm here to share with you my experience, not your experience. You can start your own video channel. You can start your own experience if you want to show people how to solve puzzles. When I'm trying to solve a puzzle, I'm showing you how I go about it. What's the logic? Because every puzzle is a little different. So, but what isn't different is my process. And if I show you the process and I teach you the process, then I empower you to solve your own problems, solve your own puzzles. And one key to that is, of course, approaching it with the simplest solution first. It's not about getting there first. Who cares if you get there first? Drop this competitive BS nonsense. It doesn't make you more or less of a person that you get to a solution faster than somebody else. That may be an appearance from a customer's perspective. What's important is you get to the solution. What's important is you don't give up. What's important is you don't cause more damage fixing it than what was broken to begin with. And by that, I would define you as a professional. Somebody who sees it through, cool, calm, collected. I don't care how long it takes. As long as when it's done correctly. And ideally, you've learned along the way. So if you ever encounter that same problem again, you'll whiz right through it because you struggled with it. That likely will stay with you. That lesson is something less likely you will forget anytime soon. That is a valuable life experience. And for anybody to take that from you isn't helping you. Once again, it's like they're sticking their foot on your head in the water, telling you they're helping you from drowning. That is not. That is the exact opposite. So again, if people have experience with a problem and they want to offer a solution, great. If people are going to continue to just plagiarize Google, then I'm going to start ignoring the chat room or just stop doing the diagnostic videos live, because in fact, I may stop doing the diagnostic videos altogether because I'm getting frustrated no matter how many times I try and make the point, no matter how many times I repeat myself. It just seems to me human nature is going to be human nature. And if there's one thing I can rest assured is that after today's video, half of you watching this by next month will completely forget it. I can count on it. I've been in business a long time, and humans, they get into this habit, and only the ones who really want to change are the ones who are going to. And you can present them, you know, a pathway to make their life easier, and they just aren't going to believe you, or they're going to fall back to their old habits. Sometimes people say, aren't you worried when you show people how to fix computers, you're going to run out of work? No. Anybody who fixes their own computer was going to not hire me anyway. So one thing we can count on is people are not going to all of a sudden, you know, countrywide or worldwide, start becoming self-reliant. They just aren't. The default human behavior in our culture today is to let someone else do it. It's bring it to my door, food delivery. Who cooks anymore? Who does anything anymore? Very few people, from my perspective. We are losing skills and talents. And, you know, you pick up your phone and you you tap on the screen and you can have whatever you want show up at your door. Food delivery. I know people that have food delivery showing up multiple times a day. I've never used it once in my life. Does that make me old? I suppose if you're from their shoes, I must look old to them. When I still go to the store and buy my groceries, I want to see the expiration date. I want to see if there's new items down the aisle that I didn't know existed. I don't want to order my groceries on my phone and have somebody else pick out the stuff. I want to look at it. I want to see what I'm buying. I don't want to order food and have it delivered so it's not hot when it gets here. I might as well just cook it myself. So there's this independence. There's this, I am afraid, deathly afraid of the laziness illness. It is toxic. It is contagious. And once you fall into it, it's hard to get out of it. When I take vacations, I try and keep them no more than 2 or 3 weeks, 3 weeks at the top. If I take a month off, it'll be very, very difficult for me to get started again. Anybody who's ever lost a job and have been unemployed for a few months, like say you were on unemployment or just for whatever reason, you were somehow able to pay the rent that just barely squeaked by, then this other logic kicks in, right? Where you start getting offered jobs that aren't paying you much more than the unemployment. I've been there. Why would I take this job? Why would I start getting dressed up and getting up at a certain time and getting into traffic, spending 8 hours or 9 hours of my day, 5 days a week, only to come home with a paycheck that's little more than what I'm making on unemployment? Why don't I just stay home and do nothing? That's your own curse. You're not outsmarting anybody. Your laziness is causing you to deteriorate without using your skills every day, without getting up and going to work and having the social experience and also having the self-fulfillment of getting something done. All you're doing is poisoning yourself, and it will lead to an early death, probably a lot of illness that leads to depression. Oh man, it is nasty. It is one of the, like, there's a lot of bad diseases in the world, but one of the worst ones, as far as I can tell, that's purely voluntary, apart from, addictions, is laziness. Once you go down that path long enough, you really, really have to struggle to get out of it. I mean, it's tough. And I've been there, I've done it. I never want to go back. It scares me. I am so frightened of it, you have no idea. At least other maladies they can give medicine for. There's no medicine for laziness. It's in your head. The only person that can control that is you. And you're going to go down your own abyss, and you're the only one who can stop it. And it takes the sheer will and strength and determination to turn that around. I don't know how to give it to you. It's nothing you're going to be able to Google. And most people, in my experience, can't do it. They just don't have the inner strength, or they're unwilling. They're just unwilling to. It's just easier to stay lazy. So if you never get there to begin with, it'll be a struggle you'll never have to have. And I have to tell you, being able to be self-sustaining, to go out there and, when my car breaks, I'll generally be the one that tries to fix it first before I take it anywhere. Not only am I saving money, I'm controlling the quality of the repair. I'm making sure it gets done right because I'm doing it myself. And yes, I will use Google for references, right? If I want to fix something I've never fixed before. How do I install a garbage disposal? How do I replace a toilet? How do I replace a radiator on a, whatever? Those can be very, very helpful to guide you, but they're not meant as a robotic, everything is going to be the same, because it's very rarely the same. It's just a general guide of what to expect. You still have to use your head. It's like a GPS. A GPS may give you directions on how to go somewhere, and while you're on a bridge, it might say, turn right. You still need to use your eyeballs in your brain to know, I'm on a bridge and I can't turn right now. It must mean further up ahead. This idea that we can shut off our brains and just let YouTube tell us, or just let GPS tell us, is what will lead to our early demise as a species. I'm just saying, as we get dumber, the technology gets smarter, we get dumber. And we justify the dumbness. Why would I be a moron in work when I don't have to? I don't know, so that you have some fulfillment in life, so you have a purpose, so you don't wonder why you're even here and why it's all just a big waste of time. You're not needed anymore. The technology is doing everything now, so you don't need to be here. Is that what you want? Because that's what you're encouraging if that's what you believe you're doing by being smarter, by letting the technology do your thinking. I don't get it. You know, maybe because I'm Gen X, we never had that option. Thank God. All right. There's a difference between being lazy and being efficient. Let's be very clear on that. I often jokingly say, I'm lazy. No, I'm efficient. But there's some truth to that. Efficiency is smart. Laziness, not so much. Efficiency allows you to get more done, to be more productive. Laziness is no productivity at all from you personally. Mike Visions with £2 says, hi, everyone in chat. It's a rainy here in Manchester in the UK. Welcome in. Thank you for the contribution. It looks like I missed a few here, so I have to go back and find them. Okay, let's go back to the beginning. Paul O'Brien contributed €2 before the show started. Says, let's get ready to rumble. Right on. Thank you, Paul. Our friend Buster, Peter Laycock, joining us from Scotland, contributes £10 and says, good morning, Carey and Marlena and everyone in the chat. All the best from Bonnie, Scotland, where the temperature in Edinburgh is 34 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 1 degree Celsius. That sounds a little chilly, Peter. Ben Laird also joins us from Scotland. And Ben contributes £2 and says, hi, all from Scotland. Thank you, Ben. Rick Lakes joining us from Minnesota with a $5 super chat. Thank you, Rick. Planet Cryos with a $2 super chat says, Planet Cryos here. Gregory Howard with a $5 super chat says, hello, Carey and everybody in the chat. Welcome in, Gregory. Always good to see you, my friend. Brett Seneke contributes $2 and says, thanks for the honesty and years of experience. Well, you're welcome. More to come. I think that catches me up. I think I got everybody. Now, let's turn on this system from yesterday. As you can see, the bench is still more or less laid out, untouched. I think I unplugged a couple things. Other than that, everything is sitting. If you want to compare where everything is on this bench, it's probably going to match exactly yesterday. I didn't put anything. I'm not trying to get the continuity right. I'm just telling you, I've touched it. So apart from turning it on and doing the updates, I've not done anything else. So I still want to test the speed on the Samsung drive. So we'll run Crystal Disk Mark. We're going to go to Windows Update, and I'm going to show you that that error is gone now. And I have done nothing to fix it other than be patient. This was a Microsoft problem. And to anybody else who had messaged me and said, hey, we're having that problem too, it's not just you, thank you for that, because that gave me a bit of confidence that I was on the right path, that none of this new hardware had any problem at all. You know, when you're dealing with a problem on a new build, and it just coincidentally is timed with some outage of some kind, it's just Murphy's Law. It's just what happens. But the last thing I wanted to do was start ripping apart things that are brand new without any real indication that anything is wrong, because everything was working exactly as it was supposed to right up until that stage. And that's what my first keep it simple thought was. If everything else is working but this, it's probably this, not all of that. Probably. So to turn around and say, well, maybe it's the SSD, maybe it's the RAM, maybe it's the CPU, maybe it's the motherboard, maybe there's corruption, maybe it's the power supply, maybe it's the key. Yes, maybe. But what is it likely? And the easiest thing you can do is wait. Easiest thing you can do is be patient. Stop being so darn impatient and intolerant Take a breather, even for yourself to think it through. And while you're thinking it through and then you go back and give it another shot, you might just find it just fixed itself. And all you had to do was give it a little space. How many times have you ever needed a little space from somebody? Like right now, you might say, okay, enough. Give me some space to digest everything you've said. This is what I'm talking about. Now you know what I mean. All right, let me turn this back on. So I think everything's still plugged back on. Did I leave everything plugged in back here? Keyboard, mouse, yeah. Let's turn this on. Let's turn this on. Let's go back over to HDMI input, and then I'm going to put myself corner like this, and then we'll turn this on. Here we go. So once again, I haven't touched it. All I've done is I've clicked the mouse, went to Windows Update. I did run memtest 86. The memory passed perfectly, as it normally would, right? We very rarely get bad parts that are brand new. And because I bought the CPU as a return CPU, I thought, oh, maybe there is a problem with the CPU. See, the mind can start really overcomplicating things. All completely unnecessary and unproductive and frustrating. Don't do that to yourself. It's a choice you make. Make different choices. Now, this is exactly as it was before. If we go down here and go to settings, update and security, check for updates. And now that error message that says your PC is missing important or critical updates is no longer there. And other updates did in fact come through yesterday. And I knew there had to be more than what we got. There was no way that a brand new Windows 10 install is only going to need 4 updates. So that was a first clue. Now, the thing you're fighting is, well, what caused it? Maybe we have a Windows Update corruption. Maybe the service is broken. Maybe the files are, oh my gosh. All right, so my utilities flash drive, that's what I need. We're going to copy over the standard stuff, where we left off yesterday, distracted and interrupted. And, there's nothing we could have done to fix that other than wait. And that's the downside of doing a live broadcast, right? If this was a recorded broadcast, you would have never known that happened. I would have started yesterday. I would have stopped filming once I had the problem. I would have solved the problem. It wasn't worth mentioning since it wasn't a problem I could control. Nobody needs to know what happened. And I would just pick up the edit right where it left off. And you, the viewer, would be just left completely ignorant and believing you're getting all the information when in fact critical information was left out of the video and edited out of it that you might find to be the most valuable part of the whole content. That's what you get when you're watching edited stuff. It's fully controlled and manipulated. And the problem with it is you don't know what they've left out. And you might, if you found out what they cut out, you might find that was the most valuable part of the content. So by doing this stuff live as I do it, we show the warts, we show the frustrations, and we deal with these coincidences with things that go down, or sometimes a cable goes bad, or internet service goes down. Hey, it happens. Just like life. This is how life is. Life is not edited. So, all right, let's see. I'll put VLC on here. 3.0.20 is the latest version. This just came out a few days ago. I always like to have the latest version of any software I have installed. It's RoboForm or Acronis. Anything, any piece of software that I've installed, I always check it for updates. If it's Chrome or Firefox, all of it, always check it for updates. Every day, the internet is constantly evolving. People are out to get you, as far as, people in other countries that hate your country, hate your government. They want to steal from you. And if you make it easy for them, it just re-emphasizes their belief that you're a moron. So by making it difficult for them, they can't claim you're a moron if you're keeping them out. With Crystal Dismark, I'm going to copy this over, and Uncle Carey's Windows 10 optimizer will copy that over. And as you can see, we have not activated Windows yet. I'm going to go online to VIP CDK deals, and for $16.16, I'm going to buy my Windows 10 Pro license. I just wanted to make sure that the machine was working before I put a license on it, because the license stays with the motherboard. If I have to send the motherboard back, the license goes with it. And when they send me my replacement, I can't move that license. That's the downside of buying a cheap license. On the other hand, if you want to buy a retail license and spend 10 times the cost, then you have the ability to move that license around. But I hope you have to move it more than 10 times. Otherwise, it's still in your benefit to keep buying the discounted licenses. You'd have to buy it 10 times approximately before you reach a break-even point. Some people expect a retail license at 90% off. That's not how it works. You're not getting a retail license in most cases. You're getting a one-time use that activates, ties to the motherboard. That's it. And for most people, that's all you're ever going to need. And it'll stay tied to the motherboard indefinitely. If I ever have to reinstall Windows 10, I never need to put the license back in. It'll reassign the license back to it automatically during Windows Update. Let's see. Let's do the Uncle Carey's Windows 10 Optimizer first. Apply that real quick and restart, and then we'll run Crystal Dismark. Yes, be sure. Thank you, Andy. Be sure and run the coupon code CAREY. Use the coupon code CAREY at VIP CDK deals to get that $16.16 price. Otherwise, it's like $21, $22. So it's an additional 30% off using coupon code CAREY. And that applies to the Windows licenses and Microsoft Office licenses. The licenses are guaranteed. If you have any problem, reach out to their customer service. Most cases, customer service is going to take care of you. In a rare circumstance, if they don't, then reach out to me personally. After 30 days, don't expect any customer service. You can ask for it, but I wouldn't expect any. You need to activate the key within 30 days if you want to get any sort of customer support or expect it. Same with Best Buy or any place else. You buy something from Amazon and you want to return it after 30 days, good luck. It's a 30-day return period. There's a 30-day support period. They sell thousands of keys. They can't just tell everybody, hundreds or if not millions of people who have bought the keys, oh yeah, just call us anytime. They don't have that many employees that, be reasonable. In most cases, you're not going to need to talk to customer service. The keys just work. I know. I buy a lot of them. They're not giving me the keys for free. I'm buying them the same way you are. I use the coupon code CAREY. I pay the same price. And if I have a problem with the key, I reach out to customer service. The last time I had to do that was sometime last year. The keys just always work. All right, let's go ahead and run the full test here on the C drive and see what kind of numbers. This is supposed to get 7,000 megabytes per second, assuming I've plugged it into a full speed M.2 NVMe port on this motherboard, which according to the manual is what we've done here. And there we have it at 6,800. We're very close to 7,000. I don't need exactly 7,000, just get me in the ballpark. If we put this NVMe drive in the center slot here, it will run at half of that speed because it's only a half speed slot. So just because you have an M.2 slot, don't assume they're all equal in features and performance. Carey, do you have a discount code for RoboForm renewals? RoboForm is only offering discounts right now at this time for new customers. It's usually November, December. I like to bring RoboForm on. I like to bring Cronus on this time of year as well. And we discuss what sort of offer we should make. At the end of the day, it's up to them. I don't get to decide. So RoboForm hasn't offered a discount for renewals. It's been over a year now. That discount has been for new customers only. But definitely something I will ask them about the next time we speak. It's been a while. It's been a few months since I've talked to them. But it's about time, I think, to have them back on the show and for them to come up with another campaign. But again, what they choose to do, whatever the discount is or who it applies to, that's always up to the vendor. That's nothing I get any say in. So unfortunately, not for renewals. Michael Dane Jr. says, here's an update in case you missed it. Dad gets out of the hospital tomorrow. I knew it. I knew it. That's awesome. He's a tough dude. So it's going to take a lot to keep him in the hospital. So I am delighted to hear that. Thank you for the update. Well, I knew it. All right. I like it when I'm right, especially when it involves the well-being of my viewers. Breathe a little easier now. All the parts listed in, all the parts are listed in the video notes below the video. Please read the video notes before asking any questions about what parts are involved. I go through a lot of time and effort to put that together, and it's so frustrating when people can't click the mouse to view it. I don't know why. Tell me why you're not viewing the video notes. Please, I want to understand. Should I not even use video notes anymore and just keep repeating myself? You know what I mean? Like every time somebody wants to know what the motherboard is throughout a 2-hour video that I have to keep telling them. I just don't understand why the video notes aren't being used. Steve McCure says, wait, so the one secret that fixes computer problems isn't Gatorade? You're not going to get away that cheap. No, no, no. The Gatorade's what powers the machine that fixes the machine. That's where I'm going with that. Hale doesn't like RoboForm. RoboForm is old. That's a very interesting perspective. RoboForm is one of the original password managers that's never, ever been hacked. Never once. They are what other people copy. They're the ones, they're like the original. And they are the ones people try to be as good as. Almost every other password manager has been hacked or doesn't offer all the features RoboForm offers. You couldn't pull RoboForm away from me. Whether or not RoboForm is a sponsor of mine or not, I'm still using that product. I have used other products, and I am telling you, they are just nowhere near as easy to use. They're nowhere as reliable. I've never seen a RoboForm update cause like a Windows crash. They've never played that game where the service is free for a while and then they charge everybody. They've never been deceptive. They've never been hacked, and their software is always constantly updated to keep away the latest threats. I don't know why anybody would use anything else, and it's cheap. A year of RoboForm will cost you less than the cost of lunch at Arby's for one person to eat lunch, and you get it for a full year. I mean, how cheap do you have to be, and how little respect do you have to have for your own password security that you want to find the cheapest thing possible? If you were shopping for life preservers, would you go, well, let's see, there's a $70 life preserver, there's a $35 life preserver, and there's a $20 life preserver. And I'm going to go out onto the ocean, or I'm going to be 100 miles or more away from the shore. And if anything should happen unexpected, which of these am I going to rely on to keep me alive? The cheapest one. Hey, your choice, man. Have at it. All right. Now, our numbers, 6875 is our maximum on the reads, 4998, nearly 5,000 on the writes. That falls within the specifications of the drive. Good enough. I'm happy with that. Now, the next thing I'm going to do for this particular build, I'm happy with the way everything's running. It's exactly the way it's supposed to be. There was nothing ever wrong with it. Now that the Windows Update service is working again, I can now put this in a Corsair 200R computer case. And, you know, the fact that this requires the 2 EPS power connectors frustrates me because I can't understand why it would require it. I'm pretty sure we only need one of those connectors. So I want to just test a theory right now. We're going to shut this down. So the other things I need to do is I'll remove some unwanted programs, you know, some games and stuff, and WhatsApp and other shortcuts. They're not bloatware. They're just little shortcuts, and I take them off. It's still something I've got to do. I've got to get a Windows 10 license for it. Do that later. But what I want to do is I just want to take one of these these 8-pin 12-volt EPS connectors off. So we just have one on there. See if the system still boots. I think you only need one. I think the second one is only needed if you're overvolting and you're drawing more power in. The system should run just fine with just the one. And the reason I need to know that is because I don't need to spend extra money on a power supply on a budget system. That kind of defeats the point of it being a budget system. Most power supplies that come with 2 EPS power connectors generally cost more. And if we don't need it, why have it? If I have a power supply that coincidentally has it, I will use it. There's no harm in using it. But it appears to be no harm in not using it. We're going to shut this off, and I just want to see if it's specific to which connector or if it doesn't matter. So what I'm going to do now is just reverse that. We'll wait for the fan to stop here. And I'll plug this one back on where it was, and I'm going to take this one off. You'll see they're all on the same cable anyway, right? And let's just see if it still turns on. Sometimes it matters if you're only using one, that it's plugged into one or the other. This is usually detailed in the owner's manual. I'm more of an experienced person. I like to see things for myself. As you can witness live on this unscripted and unrehearsed video, it has made no difference to the performance or reliability of the computer. It's still running exactly the same with the one connector, and it doesn't matter if it's on one plug or the other plug. When you are using the computer in a way that it's not intended to be used, when you are taking it outside of the specifications that it was engineered for, you know, the fact that motherboard manufacturers even allow this boggles my mind. But in general, and you know, maybe there's more to it than this, but my understanding is that's the only time you need that secondary connector. So again, if you got it, use it. Most power supplies don't offer that, unless it's a higher end power supply. So like stuff like the Spotify, I'll right click and go to uninstall. This stuff's very easy. They're just little shortcuts. Again, this is not bloatware. Bloatware are big programs like Norton or McAfee that are pre-installed, and then they leave a bunch of detritus behind in your registry and then your Windows system directory, and there's no fully removing them. This stuff, again, this is all just real simple stuff. I will unpin everything else just because I like a clean start menu, more Windows 7-esque. Movies and TV. I think they've removed movies and TV from the latest 23H2 update from 11. And then I'll go into, and you'll notice now when I click the start menu, it's narrow. And the customer can still pin things to it and make it wide again if that's the preference behind the customer prefers. It's just like adjusting the seat mirrors in a car. Everybody's got their likes and dislikes. And I do everything consistently the same. So when you order a computer from me, you know all that stuff's removed. And of course, anything I remove, you can add back on for free if you choose to. So if we go back to, why did I go to Windows Update? That's a bad habit. What am I doing? I'm so accustomed to Windows 11. Let's go to Settings, right down here. And let's go to Apps. There we go, Carey. And then I'm just going to look through for things that most customers don't want. So Groove Music, they don't use, they don't want it, we'll take it off. VLC replaces it. The movies and TV, VLC replaces it. Scroll down. And VLC is not trying to sell you anything like these guys are. Microsoft OneDrive, depending on the client, this might be able to come off. I don't know for this customer, so I'll leave it on. Solitaire, some people really, really like their Solitaire. I've learned to leave that alone. Mixed Reality Portal, I've never met a person on the planet that's ever used it. At least not more than once. And remote desktop connection. Skype, we're going to uninstall Skype because if the customer wants to use Skype, we definitely want them to download and install the latest version, which is, again, free. And everybody's using Zoom anyway. Nobody's using Skype anymore. I know there's somebody in the chat going, I still use Skype. Yeah, well, I guess you're nobody. You know what I mean when I say that? I mean, the bulk of society has moved away from Skype. It's still obviously used, but it is no longer the darling queen of teleconferencing. A lot of people will use Facebook Messenger, quite frankly. And then there's Zoom, of course. All right, so I think that's pretty much all I take off. And everything else. And we'll restart one more time. And the restart, the reason why I restart is anytime you're making changes to the system and it's deleting files, those files still may be in use until a restart takes place. So if you improperly shut down, those files may not truly be closed out and they may be sort of hanging on unknowingly, which could later come back to haunt you. It is likely an OCD, unnecessary step these days with a modern Windows operating system. But this harkens back to the earlier Windows days where things weren't quite as robust as they are today. And I don't see any harm in it. It's not like it's very time consuming, troubling to just do that one restart. So with that, we'll go here. I'll turn notifications off too, because most people don't notice when those are gone. And that's, oh, and I get rid of the Microsoft Store. We'll unpin that and unpin this email. And that's generally how I configure it and give it to the customer. And then, like I said, the customer can put all that stuff back if they want it. Most don't. Most don't even know how. They don't even know it's missing. All right, so I'm going to shut it down. Watch how fast this shuts down. Boom. The fan's still running, so technically it's still, there it goes. Now the fan's off. So let's go back to camera 1. And we'll go back over to the chat room. Oh, Microsoft Teams is used by a lot of people. I've never, ever used Microsoft Teams, but that's true. A lot of people do use Microsoft Teams. Franklin Santana says, hey, Carey, sorry I'm late. But late than never. Right on. Well, we're glad to have you here. Thanks for joining us. Quick Slick Nick said, there's crazy that there's a half power slot. It's not crazy at all. It has to do with what CPU you purchased and what it's capable of. A lot of times all people think about when they're buying a CPU is how fast is it. But there's so much more to it than that. You know, a Threadripper can give you a whole motherboard full of X16 PCIe slots. You could put your video card in any of them. And if you want to put a RAID card in there, and you have a graphics card and a regular consumer-based Intel or AMD chip, one of those is going to run at half speed. You can't have them both. The processors aren't that powerful. They don't have that many channels. You have to spend more money if you want that ability. So I don't think it's right to spit at the motherboard manufacturer for offering you a slot. You know, they could just simply not offer it. And I think many of you aren't really considering what your alternatives are here. If you complain about it enough, the solution is to take it out. And now you get no slot at all. Kind of reminds me of the soup Nazi. You complaining? No soup for you. So understand that what you're getting isn't a punishment. It's a limitation of the chip you bought. That's it. If you don't like that limitation, well, they could remove it altogether and you don't have to worry. The documentation is there. It's fully disclosed. And if you do your research before you buy your product, you shouldn't have any surprises. Most people don't. I know that. That's why I make these videos. A lot of times documentation's like written in another language. But more often than not, documentation's getting better and better, and there are pictures. And especially when it comes to the specifications of a motherboard, that's usually right there, right in the front of the manual. Or if you download the PDF, it's usually right on the first few pages. It says, these are your M.2 slots, and this is what they do. And if one shares data paths with a SATA port, so you can only use one or the other, they fully disclose that. It's always been that way. It's never not been that way since the M.2 was invented. So if you want to buy a super high-end chip along with a high-end motherboard, like that Threadripper motherboard we did for the home server, that's $1,100 for that motherboard. But you can bet every M.2 slot runs at full speed. Every PCIe slot is like by 16. It's got a ton of data channels. And that's what a Threadripper is, a Threadripper. You know, it's got all that power. People don't really understand how computers work. That's what I'm trying to help you understand. I'm not necessarily trying to make you a computer technician, but you have to. My goal is that you at least understand the gist, that computers have limitations, and depending on how much money you're spending for your hardware determines what your limitations are that you are voluntarily choosing, whether you realize you're making that choice or not. So, there's no rule that says you have to understand what you're buying before you purchase it. And probably a lot of sellers would prefer you stayed ignorant. A lot of people learn this stuff the hard way. When HP sells them a computer that is not repairable and not upgradable, it doesn't even have an internal power supply. A lot of times it never clicks in until it needs a repair. That'll often be outside of warranty. Once it's outside of warranty, that'll be the first time it ever gets opened up. Somebody looks at that and says, this is all proprietary. Everything's on one board. If anything dies, this is cheaper to replace this. It's unrepairable. It's fiscally, financially imprudent to try and repair it. You could just go to Best Buy, buy another one for a couple $100 and be back up and running before the end of the day. If we try and repair it, it could cost you the same, if not more, and be down for weeks, assuming the repair sticks and it doesn't turn around and have another problem again. It doesn't make any sense. And then people go, well, gee, I wish I would have known that before I bought it. Well, think about that when you go buy another one. But if you have multiple M.2 slots on your motherboard, chances are at least one of them conflicts with the SATA port. And very common, though not always, but it's very common that one of them will run at half speed. If they're Gen 4, generally they're not all Gen 4. Some cases they are. But sometimes you'll have 2 Gen 3s and 1 Gen 4. Or if it's Gen 5, usually you only get 1 Gen 5 because that's all the bandwidth that CPU can support. It's not the motherboard manufacturer being cheap. It's just that's where we are with our technological development of modern day consumer-based CPUs. I haven't seen a board with 2 Gen 5 M.2s on it yet. And usually the consequence of using the Gen 5 M.2 is that then your video card is going to run at half speed. You can't have both. You want to get Threadripper, you want to start plunking down. If you want to be that demanding, show me the money. No differently than a car. You want the heated seats and the built-in garage door opener. You want all these features that expensive cars have. Buy an expensive car. It's not rocket science, is it? So we're ready to put this in. I have 2 Corsair 200R cases left. Corsair still lists them on their website, despite claims that they no longer make them. They've been saying they don't make it for 10 years. That's all I keep hearing. But yet, I've still been able to buy them. Lately, however, I am concerned because this is the longest period I've gone. I think it's been about a year where I have not seen any new inventory come in. Yet the 200R remains in their catalog. When the 200R is removed from Corsair's catalog, you go to corsair.com and you search for a 200R. If it appears, they still make it. Doesn't matter what anybody on the phone tells you. This may surprise you, but the people who answer the phones usually don't know what they're talking about. There's a reason why they're the ones answering the phones. Those are different people from the ones who are doing the work. So whether you're talking to somebody from Microsoft, so much false information given from Microsoft. I have no idea how many times I have customers call me and tell me, Microsoft said that Windows 10 expires next year. No, your Microsoft, the person you talked to was wrong, but it was Microsoft. Let me guess, they had an Indian accent. Well, what's that got to do with it? They're outsourced and they don't work directly for Microsoft in the sense that they have any engineering experience. They're just people who answer telephones. Don't believe them. They don't know what they're talking about. They likely don't even know the meaning of the words they're saying. They're reading a script and the script is wrong. So when you're talking to somebody on the phone, you're talking to the lowest possible educated person at the company. There is no one less educated about the product in most companies. There are some exceptions. EVGA comes to mind, where the people answering the phones are quite knowledgeable. But I fully expect if I'm calling a company or I'm emailing a company, the person I'm talking to is somebody who has no computer experience at all. This is strictly like a Walmart greeter, right? If you ask the Walmart greeter, What aisle is such and they don't stock the store. They likely don't know. They're just there to say hello. They're a warm body there to greet you. When you call most companies, the person who answers the phone is the lowest paid employee, the lowest educated employee, at least with regards to the product that they sell. You know, that person could have a PhD for all I know, but it has nothing to do with the company, because otherwise they wouldn't be answering the phones. So when it comes to, you know, well, I called Corsair and they said, let me guess, the person you spoke to was in India. These American companies love to outsource their support to India. The people answering the phones, they're not being held accountable. It doesn't matter what they say. All that's important is they answer the phone and they read the script. That's it. And if they don't read the script correctly, you don't know any better. So we live in a time right now where even when you call the company, the people who are the default people who answer the phones likely don't have a clue what they're talking about. If they did, I might be out of business, quite frankly. But so often I have to counter what the person at Microsoft said. And I prove it over and over and over and over and over and over and over. So if they would get educated people to answer the phones, it would cost them more money. And since you're not paying for that phone call, they don't want to pay for it either. So that, you know, if you're in their shoes, what are you going to do? Well, let's find the cheapest labor we can possibly find that has the technology to answer phones and speak English. And as long as they can read our scripts, they don't have to think for themselves. They might as well be machines. In fact, the machine would be more accurate and more consistent. Unfortunately, the machines cost more. But there will come a time where the machines will be cheaper. And there will come a time when there will no longer be free support calls. It'll be financially unsustainable to deal with people who get, you know, they get frustrated, they yell, they scream, they threaten the other person on the phone. They're just answering the phone, you know, doesn't make any sense to get mad. And so I can predict probably another 5 or 10 years, maybe just 5 years, most support will go away unless it's paid for. And it will be expensive. It's no different than having a butler. If you want an assistant, if you want somebody to guide you through things, you're going to have to pay for that service. The alternative is the product's going to cost a lot more. So if you're going to buy a very expensive product, then it likely will come with some sort of concierge, which is essentially what you're looking for. And that's why they're offering the very bare minimum. As we're reaching the pinnacle of support, it's getting worse and worse and worse. And the next step is it goes away. So there, it's think of it as drying up and evaporating. And what we're getting now is just the remainder of what's left. It's pretty bad and useless. And people, for the most part, a lot of people I talk to won't even call support anymore. They're like, it's a waste of time. I often know more than the person I'm talking to, is what I'm told by my customers. Companies love that. They don't want you calling support. It's costing them money. Every time you pick up the phone and call a company, unless it's the sales division, they do not want your call. So they're going to do everything they can to discourage it. And somebody's got to pay those people to answer those phones. It will go away. I give it 5 years. And again, unless you're buying something expensive, expensive will always have good customer service because they can afford to. All right, let me see. Martin Wolferts with a $2 contribution says Serenity now. Let's see. Thank you, Martin. See if I missed anybody else. I got everybody else. All right, so yeah, so the next step here is I can put this in a Corsair 200R and I can use just my regular power supply with my single 12-pin, or sorry, that's an 8-pin EPS power connector. It's a 12-volt, 8-pin EPS power connector. And then this is, you know, goes back over here where I keep my testing power supply until such a time that I need to use it in a customer build, and I'll have another testing power supply. They tend to rotate out as they're needed. And then, yeah, there's our network cable. That's good. So activating Windows is one of the last things I'll do. After this gets installed in the case and I do all the, all the cabling and get it all hooked up and running. And the reason for that is these license keys stay with the motherboard. So if there's any reason that motherboard has to go back or be replaced, I want to be absolutely sure. Even though it's only costing me $16, if I don't have to spend $16, why would I? So I want to make sure that we are golden. We have a green light. Activating Windows then is the last thing I do. And again, after I activate Windows, I will restart the computer to make sure that the activation settings stick. Because once you activate it, if you lose power improperly, it's possible the next time you boot, you've lost your activation. Again, that hasn't happened to me in a very long time. These are sort of old carryovers from earlier days of like Windows XP and Windows 7 activations. But I also see there's no harm in creating this habit of one last reboot. Once I put the side panels on the case, I will also reboot it one more time to make sure that I haven't dislodged anything. Because there's nothing worse than having a system that works. You put the panels on it, give it to the customer. Customer says it doesn't work. What do you mean it doesn't work? So now I make sure after the panels are on it, I plug it in, turn it on one more time, go through a real quick check, make sure everything's still there. If it has a DVD drive, do I see the DVD drive? Can I eject the disk? Can I get the drawer to open? Just real simple stuff. It's good. It's likely the customer is not going to have any issue with that when they receive it. It's faster and costs me less money for me to take a few minutes extra before I send it out than to deal with the support call after the customer gets it. Support is the single number one killer of any technical company. More technical companies have died due to the cost of support than any other single issue in the industry. So in order for companies to stay solvent, they have to reduce those support costs, or they have to start charging for support, or they have to start charging more for the product. If the customer is not going to buy the product because it costs too much, so the customer is going to buy the cheaper product and then complain about the support, that's the customer's own consequences for the decision they made when they made the purchase. That's not to say that just because something is more expensive, it's guaranteed to have support, but it certainly may be why the product costs more is because the support's so much better. EVGA is a great example of this. EVGA stands as one of the best support experiences consistently I've ever had with any tech company that sells, video cards, power supplies. Corsair's pretty good, but EVGA was couldn't be beat. And now EVGA is not in the video card business. And, there's more to it, I suspect, than just issues with NVIDIA. There's likely support costs involved here, along with degrading, sorry, I'm getting another great Gatorade, along with degrading profit margins, where NVIDIA is not cutting them any breaks, and it becomes untenable, unsustainable. And you have to go, look, we either have to abandon this ship or go down with it. And I suspect that's what happened with EVGA. All right, let's take a look here. When you're self-employed, the customer is always wrong. That's ridiculous. So the customer has never always been right. That was sort of a 1950s, 1960s sort of attitude. And you have to remember, back in the day, there was significant profit margin made on most products sold. Whether you wanted to buy a kitchen sink or a ceiling fan or even an automobile, the profit margins were much, much larger. So if you've got a lot to lose, it usually makes sense to, if a customer is complaining and the customer needs to be coddled like a little baby, you were financially incentivized to do that because losing that business meant losing a significant profit. One of the downsides of the economy that we live in right now, where we're getting a lot of things made in other countries that are made at, for pennies for what it would cost us to make here in the US or in Europe. These things generally are built with such a low profit margin that there is no ability to coddle the customer anymore without going out of business. It's which is cheaper, right? This is what it is. This is just business. What is cheaper? Selling something at a significant discount to entice the customer to buy it, or spending endless amounts of money trying to appease a customer on something you made little money on. I mean, it's common sense that if you're going to stay in business, the customers can't tell you how to run your business, because if you do that, you won't be in business very long. There are policies and procedures that have to be followed. Whether it's a movie theater, you don't follow the rules, they're going to kick you out. It doesn't matter that you're the customer. There are restaurants, usually many businesses, that say we have the right to refuse service to anybody. And when you become a cost to them, or when your purchase is something they're going to make pennies on instead of dollars, your value to them is reduced. So if you're somebody buying the lowest price thing that, you're shopping at the dollar store, how much customer service do you think you're going to get at the dollar store? They can take you or leave you. You know what I mean? We're already selling at a discount. We put everything down as low as it can go. You're not going to get the kind of custom shopping experience you might get at some Beverly Hills boutique, because there's a different incentive. So oftentimes when people are self-employed, oftentimes they are far cheaper than a big corporation. If you bring me your computer for repair, I am faster and I am cheaper than the big corporate repair centers. As a result, I don't make as much money. And as a result, I can't take their losses. So if somebody wants to play games with me with regards to trying to bounce a check, or, I don't know, claim something's broken now that has nothing to do with the repair, I'm not playing that game. In some cases, it's happened where a customer is demanding something worth more than what they paid. I've offered to just give the customer their money back, because it's cheaper for me to give you your money back than to continue to deal with you. If you're somebody who bought something really expensive from me and I made a good deal of profit on it, I'll deal with your BS and your nonsense because you've motivated me to. But if I've only made a couple of bucks from you, and now you're going to cost me more than that, and not only that, you're going to be an aggravation and a pain in my neck. You're not happy and I'm not happy. You're not always right. You can't be. Otherwise, I won't have a business anymore, and there just won't be any customers for me. So I have a due responsibility to keep my business open, and to all my other customers, past customers and future customers, that I'm available for them. I can't let one selfish, narcissistic, discourteous customer, I cannot allow them to destroy my company. So again, back in the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, when people sold things in general, there was a lot more profit in it. Everything. Groceries, shoes, carpet. The profit margins people made were higher. Therefore, every customer was important. If a customer got lost, you felt that loss in your pocket. But when your prices are so low that if a customer comes back and needs something that's going to cost you money, that's now what you feel in your pocket. And if a customer is costing you money, it sounds to me like you're their customer. It sounds like the roles have reversed. And in which case, if you're the customer, and the customer is always right, well, there's a mirror. Anybody who's ever run a business or ever, whether you own the business or you've been a manager responsible, this is just basic 101 common sense stuff. Times have changed. And as we've enabled cheaper prices on things, we've lowered our profit. And the only way we can make up for it is in just quantity. You've got to just sell a lot of it. And that means each individual sale isn't that important. The minute somebody becomes a pain in the neck, get rid of them as fast as you possibly can. Because the longer they hold on, the more losses you're going to take on as a company. And if you allow that to build, you just won't have a company anymore. At the end of the day, it's your responsibility as a company owner or as a manager who's directing the company to keep that company afloat. Every day your company's trying to die. Every single day, your sole job is to keep your company alive. And there are customers that want nothing more than to put you out of business. They don't say as much, and they may not be consciously thinking that, but their behaviors and their actions only lead to one result, if they're allowed. So we have to have policies and procedures so that we don't die for somebody else's survival. We are only responsible for us to survive. And if we have big spenders, customers that are regulars that spend a lot of money with us, then we're going to give them special treatment that other people aren't going to get. And I think you're going to find that true in every aspect of the world. You're going to get special benefits. I go to a restaurant that I like. I always tip very generously to the staff. And the reason I do that is the next time they see me come in, I want them to recognize me. And I want them to know I tip well and that they're going to take care of me. And they're happy to see me. If I don't tip very well, if I just do everything average, they have no recollection that I was ever there in most cases. But if I tip well, there's a great likelihood I'll be remembered. And if I'm remembered, then I'll likely be recognized when I come in. And that wait staff who received that big tip from me last time is going to want me in their section. And they're going to say hello to me, and they're going to be happy to see me because they know a big tip is coming. But if all I do is the bare minimum, they don't care. You want to eat here? Eat here. You don't want to eat here? Don't. They never gave you a second thought. I've got other people to wait on. Not the only person in the world. So you sort of adjust your expectations based on what you're offering as the customer. If you're offering the bare minimum, expect the bare minimum. That's the time we live in now. And it has to be that way in order to stay in business. Denny Koyman became a supporter. Hey, welcome in, Denny. Thank you for supporting the channel. Thomas 70 said, I have done inbound and outbound phones, as well as back-end phones, monitoring. And all of them come with crazy stress in one way or another, and you get paid very little for the stresses. Yeah, and it's not your fault. Whatever the customer's pissed off about, you didn't do it. Let's see. Some folks were experiencing buffering. Did we have a, sorry, I'm not monitoring my OBS right now. Did OBS have an issue? No, OBS has been 100% solid on this end. I have not had a single dropped frame. So whatever that was, it wasn't on me anyway, but always good to know if you guys are having a problem, if it's just you or if it's everybody. Thomas 70 said, something I learned from network marketing years ago was high touch, high service will succeed. It's not true though. It's absolutely not true. It depends where your region is, where you live, and what the people in your region are buying. And if your service is something that's local only, or if you're selling gizmos or whatever, you're shipping them worldwide or, countrywide. There are certain services that some people will pay more for. So it kind of comes with the line of work. If you want to be a butler, you're likely not going to get much job opportunity in a poor part of town. There's probably not a lot of opportunity for butler work. So if you live near Beverly Hills or you live near some wealth and you want to specialize in Porsche car repair only, you could totally get away with that and specialize in only fixing Porsches, nothing but Porsches. Or for that matter, it could be Bentleys or other exotic cars where just your baseline expenses or costs that you're going to charge your customer are way higher than your average ordinary car. But that's not going to do too well in a bad part of town. So where it's appropriate, high touch service does apply. Where it's not appropriate, that will put you out of business because people will certainly appreciate it, but they won't necessarily pay for it. But again, it depends on what you're doing. Aaron Warner says hello. Hey, Aaron, welcome in. Elko says soon we'll have ChatGPT voice artificial intelligence answering the support phones. Got news for you. They've already been doing that. A lot of companies have been doing that. And you'll never know. Ben Laird said computer tech is moving so fast it's hard to keep up. I kind of feel like it's slowing down. Like all we're getting lately is just a lot of the same, just faster. You know, we're still selling processors that are running in the frequency of processors from 15 years ago. But now we get more cores or more cache or, you know, other developments aside from frequency. Now, there are some frequency enhancements, but they're not the big leaps. So let me share my perspective. In 1990, I bought an IBM compatible computer. A friend of mine built it. I had no idea how to build a computer back then. But I had Ataris and I had, you know, TRS-80 Model 1 for years, back in the mid-'80s, early 80s. So this was my first real, you know, I considered the IBM compatible computers real computers because they weren't color. Ataris, the Commodores, these were all color. So anyway, cost me $1,200. And for the $1,200, I'm going to tell you exactly what I got. I got a green screen monitor, about yay big. I got a desktop computer. Inside was a 8286. So it was a 286 processor that ran at 12 hertz, not 12 megahertz, not 6 gigahertz. It ran at 12. And there was a red button on the computer that if you pushed it, put it into turbo mode, that boosted the frequency to 16. This was, let's say, 1990. So we're 33 years ago. Soon after, the 386 came out. And the 386 was like 25. And then the 486 came out, and the 486 had a 25 and then a 33. Then they had a 486 DX2, which doubled it to, from 33 to 66. And there was a DX4 that brought it to 486-100, I want to say, was the top speed of the 486. After that, the Pentiums came out. And also with the 486s, you had a choice if you wanted the math coprocessor or not. Hence, there was a DX or SX. But every time a new chip came out, the speeds were doubling. It was doubling in on itself every 18 months to 24 months. So my 286-12 very quickly, you know, was a 1/3 of 486-33. 1/3 in just a couple of years' time. 2 years, 3 years. And now we're running at 6,000. From 12 to 6,000. The 14900K chip runs at one core, 6 gigahertz, 6,000 compared to 12. But here's the problem. These advances we're making are reaching a point of diminishing returns. That system I bought for $1,200, I didn't finish telling you what it had. 4 megabytes of RAM. 4 megabytes of RAM. 4. The first megabyte was utilized by DOS. Effectively, DOS had a memory limit of 684K, 640K. And in the remaining 384 between 640 and 1024, that first 1 meg of memory, it's like this area you couldn't touch, or you had to use a special program like EMM386 to get the access to memory above 640. It was crazy. My hard drive was a mechanical 40 megabyte. I don't even have a flash drive that small. I have a flash drive that is the size of my pinky fingernail in here. And it's years old, years. Here it is. This flash drive right here, I don't know if you can even see it, which has got to be, it's not 10 years old. It's got to be at least 6. This is 16 gigabytes of RAM, of NAND storage, not RAM, but DRAM, NAND. And this 16 gigabytes, I want to do the math on this. I had 4 megabytes. You need 1,000 megabytes to get to 1 gigabyte. You need 1,000 megabytes to get 1 gigabyte. 4 megabytes. That's a far cry from 1,000. This is 16,000 megabytes. Right here. And those advances happened quickly. But lately, the last 5 or 6 years, the last 10 years, I guess, the advance in technology has really been, there's not a whole lot of advantage. We're reaching a point now where the computers are so much faster than the demands of the software and people in general, that any computer you bought in the last 10 years, if it was halfway decent 10 years ago, it's probably still fine. The differences you're going to see with solid state storage, of course, is much faster load times. But when you're going up from, say, a Gen 3 NVMe to a Gen 4 to a Gen 5, the price doubles for the same amount of space. The speed doubles for the same amount of space. But your experience doesn't double. Your experience in most cases will be pretty much unnoticeable. So the technology is just more of the same. We haven't really seen much in innovation. USB is still USB. Goes a little faster. The connector is now USB-C, so you could plug it in either direction. You could make that connector plug in either direction when USB was invented. It cost too much money back then. And it wouldn't have, the public wouldn't have accepted it. They wouldn't have bought it. It would have gone the way of FireWire. So it's not that we didn't have the ability to make that connection plug in either way. It was cost prohibitive to do it. But now, as our production techniques and manufacturing have improved, it's cheaper to make that now. And so now we can make a connector that can plug in either way and still be affordable. That's why, if you're wondering, why didn't they make it that way to begin with? It would have cost too much and people would not have embraced it, and it would have died off, as abandoned and not used enough. Very similar to FireWire. Pretty much very rarely ever talked about anymore. Even with Thunderbolt, which is now sharing that USB Type-C interface, once again, it's to reduce manufacturing cost. And now the two can kind of merge. And you can imagine one will likely go away. And guess which one that's probably going to be. So the advances that we're seeing in some cases are that we can make things smaller and faster for less. But the benefit we as users get from that, for each and every one of us, depending on how we use our computer, you will eventually, if you haven't already, reach a point of diminishing returns where you can no longer tell the difference from old and new, other than looking at benchmark. So the good news is it's not really moving as fast as it might appear. It's slowed down quite a bit from my perspective. The new technology that was constantly mind-boggling. You know, even the invention of Wi-Fi, the invention of USB, the invention of, you know, of SSDs becoming affordable. All that excitement's behind us now. It's just more of the same. Kind of bored with it, honestly. After a while, it doesn't matter if you make it, you know, 10% faster. We're barely using what we have now. It's like you've got this big plate of food, more than you can eat, and I've just told you, here, have some more. Okay. Ben Laird said he has a 25-year-old 4 gig parallel ATA mechanical drive and it still works. Well, they don't make them like they used to, do they? It might still work, but I have no idea what the heck you'd use it for. David Graham says we can't shrink the transistors anymore. Oh, that's not true at all. No, the shrinkage is continuing. The next series of chips from AMD or NVIDIA down the line, they've already got it lithographed out for 3 nanometer. Intel's having a hard time catching up, but no, don't believe that at all. There's the pace of advancement to the shrinking is taking longer, but absolutely achievable. There's already plans for 3 nanometer. And then after that, it'll shrink even more. Rest assured, we've not reached our limit yet. So Saturday, November 11th is Veterans Day. And you know, we like to give away PCs to veterans here on the channel. And with recent contributions from our friend John Jack Wilson, Peter Laycock, or Buster as we call him, and Mortant 1210, to name just a few, we've got money set aside to pay for shipping for what are effectively these little HP mini PCs. And I have several of these to give away. These are Core i5 6500T processors. That means they are 6th generation off-lease business class computers. They have, most of them have built-in Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, solid state drives, pretty small, like 256 or 512, Windows 10. These are not Windows 11 compatible. Windows 10 is good until the end of the year 2025. So these are good for another 2 years. Now, technically Windows 10 support ends in October 14th of 2025, but you could still safely use it, I predict, till the end of the year. These aren't permanent, no computer's permanent. This is to get somebody by. So if you are a veteran and you've not received anything from this channel before, and you're in need of a computer, leave a comment in the video, below the video. After we're done live, the chat room will go away and the comment section will be available. And nominate yourself and tell us why you should be selected. You must be in the United States. You must have never won anything or received anything from the channel before. We have a limited number of computers to give away, and we want to make sure we're going to give the computers to the people who will benefit the most. So if you're just looking for a toy to tinker with or a spare machine on the side, please say as much. You're still welcome to nominate yourself. But if there's somebody else who's like, you know, I'm scraping by, my computer's really old and unreliable, blah, 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 this would really help. You cannot nominate anybody else. You can only nominate yourself. If you want to if you're selected and you want to give that to somebody, that's yours to do with whatever you want. If you want to set it on fire and drive over it with the car, I don't care. What you do with it is yours. So it would be your prize, if you will, your gift, I guess is a more appropriate term. And if you choose to regift it, that just means that you're ineligible for future giveaways. The reason I am doing it this way is I want to make sure that everybody 18 years of age or older that is a fan of the channel has an opportunity to receive something from the channel. Most viewers receive nothing. Those of you who have received something represent the smallest minority of viewers. So out of courtesy for others, we ask you, don't nominate yourself if you've already received something, because I'm going to deny it anyway. So please have courtesy for the fellow viewers so that they can be heard and be noticed and have an opportunity to receive something as others have. My goal is that everybody who wants something, whatever it is, whatever the giveaway is we're doing, if it's a Wi-Fi car, antennas or NVMe enclosures, all this other stuff we've given away, that everybody has an opportunity to receive what's of most value to them. Computers are one of the most costly things we give away here. These computers cost me $100 a piece, plus I've spent my time, which has value. I've updated the BIOSes. I've replaced, they all came with mechanical drives. I've replaced the mechanical drives at my cost with just cheap solid state drives. Sometimes they're M.2s and sometimes they're 2.5-inch drives. Depends on the mini PC. I'm not promising any specific configuration beyond they have 8 gigs of RAM. They can be upgraded if you want to. I wouldn't upgrade them. They're all i5 6500Ts with Windows 10 Professional installed, updated, and activated, which of course has value. And then they are packed and boxed and shipped, which generally costs me about $50 on top of all the other time and money I've spent. So if I'm going to take that effort for my viewer, I want to make sure the viewer's deserving. Now, for all of our veterans, of course, we appreciate more than words your volunteering, your service to defend and support our country. And our government does not do enough in return for your sacrifice. We're just trying to do a little bit here. And we want that to go as far as possible by helping those who would benefit the most. So once again, in the comments below the video, nominate only yourself. You must be a veteran. I will also say if you're somebody in need, times are tight for some people struggling, go ahead and nominate yourself, because if we don't have very many veterans nominating themselves in this giveaway, then the secondary choice will be people in need. Regardless, you must be over 18, you must be in the United States, and you must have never received a gift from this channel before. That's how easy it is. We have a lot of people out there who have received computers. How many of you in the chat room right now have received an item, whether it's a computer, an NVMe enclosure, many of the other giveaways we've given? I'm just kind of curious what the ratio is right now. Because the more we give away, it's always going to somebody different. So the amount of people that I'm trying to get is 100% of people in the chat room saying, yeah, I've received something. Because when we reach that, then it's time for people to receive a second thing, once everybody has had an opportunity. Douglas Burchell says he's got the AWOW mini PC. Keith Landers says he's received something from the channel. William Dawson says he has. Steve Mercure says he's got one of the hot dog PCs. He's like one of 3 people. I think Planet Cryos, Luke Grenia, and Steve Mercure are the only ones who got hot dog PCs. Franklin Santana says, I want a free Carey Holzman Go Faster sticker. Yeah, I can't help you there, Franklin. I don't have those. They're all of the merchandise my sister controls, and none of that's given away. I mean, we have to keep the channel up and running. So if you go to careyholzman.com, you can buy the Carey Holzman badge. They're made of metal and they're engraved For 20 bucks, they ship anywhere in the world. They're not expensive. And again, taking something from the channel isn't supporting it. It's causing it to sink. So you're not helping the channel by saying, I want something for free. But if the channel has something to offer and you'd like to nominate yourself for it if you're eligible, we certainly hope you'll participate in that. But we do hope that you support the channel. Mark Gain says, not me. Well, you're in Ireland. I can't ship. So all the items at careyholzman.com can ship to Ireland. And Mark, because you're a member and because you've been so generous, I'm sure that if you wanted an item from the careyholzman.com shop, I'd pay for it myself. I'm not going to have my sister pay for it, but my sister's the one who would have to package it and ship it and pay for the postage. So, for my members and for the people who support me, if there's something I can do for you, feel free to reach out if it's possible, if it's reasonable. Happy to show my appreciation for your support. Charles Eslick says he received one. Chris Johnson said he received a Windows 10 key. Lou Greenia got the Buildguide build. Yeah, that's the Howtobuild. LRCX said he got a mini PC. Look at all the people that have received giveaways. Rick Lakes says he received an Ace Magician mini PC. It's still running good and no problems. Did any of you in the chat room get the Silverstone enclosure? I gave away like 10 of those. Most of the merch at careyholzman.com can be shipped worldwide. I think all of it can be shipped worldwide. But again, my sister handles all of that. I don't deal with it. She handles taking in the money, packaging and shipping the product in a timely manner, paying for the postage and whatever expenses there are, taking the time out of her day to get it done. So, but that's over at careyholzman.com, including these mouse pads. My sister designed these, found a manufacturer, checked them all out, passes all of her requirements. And when these sell out, she will likely do a different design so people have a reason to buy another one. And these are also used to clean your monitor. And if these get dirty, you should be able to throw them in a washing machine. They do eventually get old and fray. They're not indestructible. But this is design number 2. And she orders, I don't know, 50 or 100. And then that's it. That's the run. And when they run out, unless they run out very quickly, and then she'll reprint. Otherwise, if she's going to do another order, she'll just change the design. So again, people have a reason to buy another one, right? If you want to collect all the different designs. So it's just another way to show your support. And all that stuff ships worldwide. There's no limitation. And I think the prices all include shipping. So there's no surprises there. I think I need my glasses back on. Shamim Kajvera says, I have a question regarding cloning an SSD with Acronis. If I use one M.2 slot as the source, and a second M.2 slot from the motherboard for the cloning, I will not need the Acronis rescue disk. Not if you've installed, well, it doesn't matter. If you've installed Acronis on your Windows platform and you want to do a clone, whether you're doing it internally or externally doesn't matter. You'd still be using the installed version of Acronis. The rescue disk is if you're in a situation where you cannot boot to Windows, or you don't have Windows installed on the, if you don't have Acronis installed on the computer. But if you have a Acronis installed on the computer, there's no reason for you to use rescue disk under any circumstance. Some people are talking about advertising on the channel. Yes, YouTube is getting very aggressive with, fortunately, with the ads. So The only way I can turn the ads off is to make these videos members only. If you're able to watch these videos for free and people have ad blockers, YouTube's getting intolerant of ad blockers now. And they're getting more aggressive because people aren't buying things. The commercials that they're selling aren't very effective, and therefore they can't charge as much for them, so they have to air more of them. This is my understanding of what's happening. With YouTube, what's it called? Red, YouTube Premium, you won't see ads anymore. Members of the channel, when we do members only videos, those are ad free. Somebody's got to pay for the content. It's got to get paid for somehow. And despite the ads running, my YouTube payments are lower. They've been lower every month. Month after month, they go down. The amount of revenue coming in from memberships is making up a larger percentage of my income. If the videos no longer provide a sustainable income, then likely I'll just make videos on Fridays for the public and still do videos on Mondays for members, or I just turn the whole thing members only, and then nobody has to see any more ads. But there's got to be a sacrifice made on. I'm making the sacrifice. Your viewing the video is not gift enough, unfortunately. It doesn't work that way. There's very little opportunity where you're utilizing a service is beneficial to the service unless you're paying for it. You're not doing the doctor a favor by going to see the doctor. You're not doing the mechanic a favor by taking your car to get fixed. It should be reciprocal. There should be a benefit in it for both parties. You're getting the benefit of having your car fixed. The mechanic has the benefit of earning some money from that. If only one party is making the sacrifice, if the content creator is paying for everything and the viewer is paying for nothing, you can rest assured that video channel is not sustainable and won't be around very long, because somebody's got to pay the electric bill. Somebody's got to pay the costs of making the videos. So the ads are a very minimal, like if there was anything less, and I suspect if that's too much for you, my recommendation would be to stop watching the videos, because you're just costing me money if that's the case. You're not benefiting me if you're not supporting the channel in some way. And it might get to be it's an ugly situation because everybody's gotten cheap. Nobody's got money, everybody's gotten cheap. YouTube's getting cheap, the viewers are getting cheap. Heck, even I'm getting cheap. The amount I'm willing to invest in the content now, because I'm not getting paid as much, I'm not investing as much. At some point, it'll just be me talking and there won't be any more stuff, because I will refuse to put any more money into it if it's now me paying for you to have entertainment. It doesn't make any sense. So I can't stress enough how important the memberships are here currently under our YouTube situation as it is today, that without the members, likely the content you're watching right now wouldn't even be happening. Well, in this case, this is a little different because this is a build for a customer. So this particular video would likely happen regardless. But other videos where I'm making purchases of things to review, or even if I'm accepting product from a company like Minisforum, there's still an expense there to make the video. And if it's not generating any revenue and I'm not independently wealthy to finance it, either somebody's going to pay or it just goes away. Look at all the shops that closed up in San Francisco because of all the theft, all the people taking things and not paying for it. So the solution isn't to charge more. The solution is to simply dissolve, find another business market, different avenue. So be careful, because if enough people are discouraged by ads that they don't want to watch YouTube anymore, it only leads to one way, and it's up to the audience really that determines how that way is going to go. But I can tell you, I am very, very honored and humbled by the number of people that signed up for memberships. I never expected it to get as big as it got. And without those people, you wouldn't have to worry about the ads because there wouldn't be the content to watch anyway. At least half of it at least half every month is directly a result of our contributors. No other way, unless I want to be a corporate spokesperson making commercials, but then you'd be watching nothing but a big commercial. Most of those big tech channels that you watch, they're just making advertisements for companies. You don't realize it, but you're watching a big commercial on those channels that have over 1 million subscribers. They're selling you something. So maybe you like that. Oh. But to complain about the ads so you can watch an ad that's 20 or 30 minutes long that you call content, that's just another ad. Think about it. I pay for YouTube Red myself. I don't have the patience for the ads. I also know that when I do watch content, because I'm a YouTube Red subscriber, my view is worth more to the content creator than somebody watching for free. It's cheap. It's cheaper than Netflix, so I get far more value. I watch YouTube every night. I will sit in bed and just, what me and Mara call squirrel. I will squirrel and find little nuggets of gold on YouTube that, like, how did I not know this was here? And, you know, find some fantastic content creators that YouTube's been hiding. The button to view what's trending is gone away. Like on my Fire Stick, there's no trending option anymore. So I can't see what's, like, I can still see it on the browser, but the way YouTube has changed their search and video recommendations sucks. There's so much great content out there that I have to think of what I want to search for to find it. It used to be YouTube presented it to me. Now what YouTube is presenting is mostly completely unrelated to anything I'm interested in. It's almost like it has nothing to do with my watch history. They're just randomly suggesting things that I have no interest in and I've never shown interest in. So I have to get creative and think about what I want to search for. And there are some great YouTube channels out there that are struggling like I am to get, you know, recognized or viewed by viewers. How do you know to look for something if you don't know it exists? Paul Garrett said, I sent Google an email saying I should be entitled to free premium in exchange for the data you take from me. I think this is a fair deal. Unfortunately, Paul, you're not worth much. I hate to break your heart, but the data that they're taking from you is worth less now than it was worth 5 or 6 years ago. As a result, that whole concept no longer is effective anymore. You are overvaluating what you think your data is worth, unfortunately. You know, I might think this keyboard's worth $200, but unless I can find somebody willing to pay it, Zillow might say your house is worth $500,000, but a real estate agent might tell you differently. And at the end of the day, it's about how much somebody is willing to pay. You don't get to dictate to me how much I'm going to offer you for what you're selling. You don't get to say, my data is worth this much and you will pay that. It doesn't work like that. Google sells your data for the same amount they sell everybody else's. And if you choose to voluntarily participate in that transaction, you can't then complain that the deal's not fair after you already agreed to it. But you can stop participating. Google won't miss you. Remember what I said earlier. Unless you're bringing value to a business, the less value you bring, the less they care. Come, you go, it doesn't make much of a difference. This is what's happening with YouTube viewers. Sometimes YouTube viewers think, well, I've subscribed to you, so now you can answer my tech support question for free. No, your subscription is completely valueless to me. The only thing it does for me is if I want to go to a sponsor and the sponsor says, how much are you charging? I can base how much I want to charge a sponsor on how many subscribers I have. YouTube doesn't pay me anything on subscribers. Subscribers, because I'm not taking on sponsorships, they have no value to me at all, zero. The value they have is to the subscriber, who will be alerted anytime I post a new video so they can watch the content and not miss out. That's to their benefit, not to mine. So there's a large misconception. And all you have to do is become a content creator to fully understand just how little the average viewer is making a difference in your popularity as a content creator or how much money you're making. When you have contributors, when you have people that are, with super chats or memberships, that makes all the difference in the world, because a simple $1 super chat is the equivalent of about, and do the math on this, I think I need 1,000 viewers to make $1. It's like each viewer is worth 0.013 of a penny every 30 days per video that they watch. So you need a lot of viewers, at least if you want a modicum of a sustainable income. Not to mention, you have an investment in camera equipment, production equipment, microphone, software, streaming computers and cables and lights, cameras and memory cards, editing software, internet bill, which you probably pay anyway, but you want to be live, you have to have faster internet, which you may not ordinarily need. And at the end of the month, you're going to see it costs X amount of money to make content. And if you're not making that money back, then the content for you might be something you do for fun as a hobby. Hobbies don't make it. But if it's something you want to do regularly, something you want to be able to provide for paying the rent and food, then it's really the contributions from the viewers. And even if it's like YouTube Red, like I said, those viewers are worth more. Their views are worth more. I've stated before in business, I've had somebody approach me once and say, well, it's happened a lot. They lost a customer and they're upset. Why are you upset? Why are you so blue? Oh, I lost a customer today. Okay, but did you lose a good customer or did you just lose a customer? If all you have to offer is your presence, it's not really much. I'm sorry. This isn't friendship. This is business, and in the operation of how the world goes around. And the entitlement isn't going to lead you anywhere. You can write to Google all you want. Nobody's reading those emails. Nobody cares. Unless you're a person, like a public figure, some form of authority figure, government official, you've got to be delusional to write an email like that and think any human being read it or even considered for a minute what you wrote. The first thing you have to establish before you can do that is who you are and why your opinion matters. And if you've not done those first two things, when you jump to the third thing, you're delusional. It's just a delusion to think you made any difference at all, or it will have any impact, that anybody will actually read it. They get thousands of emails all the time. Like, their inbox is insane. Why would your message stand out and be read? Unless you're threatening to walk away with something that they have to have, like profit. So if your data is worth 1,000 times more than anybody else's for some reason, maybe. But even then, it'd be doubtful. Just there's too many people on it. So you have to be a public figure, somebody notable, somebody with authority, politician, something like that. Some kind of public figure. Otherwise, money talks. And if there's no money involved, if all you have to offer in trade is your data is worth less and less every year. As more and more people get online, it's a supply and demand thing, you know. More companies are offering data. The data itself isn't very useful when it's not resulting in any profits. So if, for example, your data suggests that you would have an interest in a certain product, and as a result, the company that makes that product bought that data, sifted through it, and your name pops up as an ideal candidate. So then they send an advertisement, you complain about the advertisement. I'm not sure you're thinking this all the way through. Therefore, your data is worth even less now. John Doe says, I don't make anything in my YouTube channel. I really don't care if I make anything on my channel because I use it for fun with friends. Yeah, there's absolutely plenty of YouTube channels where people, probably the vast majority of YouTube channels, do not make any money. And even when they do make money, I think the average payout is somewhere between $20 and $40 a month. So there's only, well, there's probably over 100,000 YouTube channels that have over 100,000 subscribers. I'm not sure how many there are. Maybe there's might be over 1 million now. But you really need to reach 100,000 subscribers before you can even consider, in my opinion, relying on YouTube for revenue. Most of the money the big content creators here on YouTube are making is coming from their own third-party sponsorships with credit card companies, or you don't see any car company deals, which is weird, but there's a lot of credit card companies and cryptocurrency companies and companies that make products, you know, for a long time. The Harry's razors or hygiene products are very common. Well, you've seen it. You know what I'm talking about. And I can promise you those content creators are making more from that sponsorship deal than they'll likely see from YouTube in several months. And that's, you know, if you see a content creator that has a fancy car and a big house, it's not coming from YouTube. That's coming from outside, whether they make their own merchandise and they sell it, and they sell a lot of it, or they have sponsorship like David Dobrik, although he's not doing much these days. His sponsorship with SeatGeek was providing Lamborghinis. That sponsorship alone, guys like Casey Neistat, it's through the sponsorships that they're making all their bank. Logan Paul, is it Logan? Jake Paul, who's doing all the boxing, he's making $20 million in a boxing ring for one match, but he's advertising it on YouTube where he's making, you know, probably a couple grand a month. Peter VZ with a €1 contribution. Thank you, Peter. Jim KJ3N said, my YouTube channel is just a sinkhole. I occasionally pour money into it. Without monetization or contribution, it's all cost. And that's part of the reason I average a video a month. Yeah, somebody's got to pay for it. Having a good time says, I only have 40 subs. I just make videos for fun. Well, I think it's great. I think it's great to make videos because, you know, it's enjoyment and it can be a hobby. Computers started off as a hobby for me. And I thought, wouldn't it be great if I could get paid to do this? Like when people say, how come I'm not into gaming anymore? Why would I pay money to go to work? What if you could get paid to play the game. So that's the way my brain works. If there's something I enjoy doing, then how can I do that for a living? And if you're lucky, you'll do for a living what you love. Play piano, maybe you could be a musician, play in an orchestra. Maybe teach people how to play piano, earn a living that way. I was very interested in cars, and natural thought was to be a mechanic. It wasn't really what I wanted to do. I just thought that's all I know. It's 17 years old. Computers were still a hobby for me, and there was no money to be made in it in 1985. So that's when I would have been 17, 1985. So when the opportunity, when computers started becoming more popular, not just for the nerds, not just for this small little class of part of society that was looked down upon by everybody else and made fun of. Now suddenly it became a cultural thing and everybody had to have one and there was money to be made. And I was messing with computers and playing video games. And I thought, wouldn't it be great if I could get paid to do this? And while I was doing all that, I also had an interest in videography. Back in college, I took several classes on filmmaking. And I got disheartened by it when the instructor informed us, unless you live in Hollywood or New York, the type of jobs that are available for filmmaking in Phoenix in the 1980s was likely going to be making corporation videos, like a safety training video for U-Haul was the exact example I was given. Oh, that doesn't sound like fun at all. I don't want to do that. I don't want to make corporate training videos. But a filmmaker has to make those. But if the film industry is primarily in Los Angeles, then you need to go to Los Angeles. And if you really want to learn filmmaking, you need to go to USC. You need to go where the filmmakers are. But now with the internet, the world's opened up and you can do anything from anywhere. So with YouTube, I started YouTube just for fun. It combined my passion of filmmaking with computers and enabled me to share with people my knowledge and experience that I did not have as a source when I was learning. So I wanted to be the source I wish I had, where things were explained to me in a way that I wish they were explained to me, where I could have more easily understood. Some of the things were hard for me to learn, some things harder than others. So my approach was always, let me share this with people as my gift back to society for anybody who wants it. And those videos, like the first year, I only did 2 videos and I never planned on doing any more. It was just like when I wrote my book, I didn't plan on becoming an author. I just wanted to write a book, check it off the bucket list. I wanted to write articles for Tom's Hardware, at least 1 article. I ended up doing 2, but I did not want a career writing articles for anybody. Just had this bucket list of, wouldn't it be an honor to have an article that I wrote published at Tom's Hardware? Wouldn't it be an honor, to get some recognition from a reputable industry source? So when the YouTube channel, again, I ignored it the first year, I got a check in the mail for it was a little over $100. And I thought it was a scam. It said Google, and let me do a search on this and see what this scam is. And what my search revealed is that money came from those videos I posted a year earlier. They had finally accrued, the minimum payout was $100. So they had finally accrued $100 worth of revenue. It took a year, but it was all organic. I didn't do anything to market them. So telling you about myself and the way I think, when I saw that check for $100 for essentially doing nothing, I said, I got to make more videos. And then YouTube had the ability for you to apply for their partner program for monetization. Now, initially, videos were limited to being only 15 minutes in length, and they were standard definition only. So a lot has changed since then. And the number of creators has also exploded. And the amount of money YouTube pays is now being divided amongst more people. So each person gets less. So in the meantime, my ability to make the videos is something I enjoy doing as a hobby. but at the same time, it's something I can count on to help pay the bills. I'm okay with that. But the minute it reverts back to a hobby again, where it's costing me money, what choice do I have? I still have to pay the rent. I still have to pay the electric bill. And if I'm spending far too much of my time with something that's not reimbursing me, then it's time to shift. And it's, again, the memberships that have made all the difference in the world. Your super chat contributions, PayPal contributions, your Amazon gift cards, helping to support the channel's independence away from becoming a big commercial. Because I just don't want to do that. As a filmmaker, I don't want to make commercials. I've had a few companies that I like ask me if I do ads for them. It's really tempting, especially now when everything's getting tight. I like their product. I mean, why not do it? This is just not what I do. You know what I mean? So I might make an exception if it's worth it. Maybe do a 30-second ad for one of my sponsors that they can pay to air on other channels. That also raises awareness for my channel for people who don't know who. But there's this other half of me that's not why I got into this. I didn't get into this to make ads. So the question is, how much am I willing to sacrifice to keep this up and running? As long as the memberships and the contributions continue, we're good. But if that starts drying up, and if we get more people who think that just getting their data should be enough, it's worth less and less every day. And it's not sustainable. And if that's your attitude, then you have no expectation of getting any content at any time from anyone, because you haven't sacrificed anything. There's not aware of any build that you can pay with that attitude. I'm not aware that you can pay an electric bill, or you can buy groceries, or literally any bill in your life where you're receiving a service or a product and you're not giving anything for that other than saying, well, you can look at my data. Sorry, it's just not worth much. I wish it was. Don't get me wrong. I think it'd be great if your data was worth a lot of money. Then I wouldn't struggle with, keeping this thing up and running. It is a struggle. Sometimes, some months are harder than other months. Some months are easier than other months. That's the other thing, is it's very inconsistent. The performance of the YouTube channel is kind of dependent on the algorithm that I have no control over. So for some reason, the algorithm will be in my favor, and other times the algorithm isn't. And when we have folks like our good friend Buster, Peter Laycock, if there is anything close to a benefactor to the ongoing expenses, you have, I don't know how much you are aware that the content that you're watching for free in exchange for your data was actually paid for in many videos by Buster. So, can't say enough thank you for his continued generosity. And it's not just Buster, but Buster's been very consistent. Jefferson Creel the other day with a very generous contribution. I always shout these people out because without them, I'm telling you, half of the content you wouldn't have to complain about. There just wouldn't be content. Or there wouldn't be half of it. I've done a video every day this week. How much work do you think I'm getting done for clients? Because that's ordinarily where I make my money. It's almost a 50-50, maybe it's 60-40 at this point, YouTube versus my clients. But with YouTube going down, further down in payment, I'm glad I still have the clients. Put it to you that way. Because at least I have something to fall back on. David Graham with $2 super chat said, watching you is a pleasure. You're good. Well, thank you, David. It's a pleasure having you guys here. But I also want you to know that there are challenges as a content creator. And I encourage each and every one of you who have any curiosity at all what this is like to make your own YouTube video. You've never done it. You've got a smartphone, you've got the camera, you've got the microphone. Make it. See how much effort it takes. See how many views you get. And see if that's something you want to do again. And then you can ask yourself why I do it. I clearly enjoy it. I really enjoy it. I enjoy having you here. I enjoy these friendships that I've made. I'm not going to easily give that up. But I also enjoy having a roof over my head. So anytime I can take something I enjoy doing and get paid to do it, well, I'll tell you what, that's the magic sauce right there. But sometimes things are going to be fad-ish. If I enjoy fixing VCRs and I can make a living fixing VCRs, at some point you've got to take the acceptance that nobody's buying VCRs anymore. And if you don't pivot to something else, you're going to go broke and you're going to be in a bad situation. So I have the anxiety, but I don't have the reality yet of being in that situation. Again, I still have my regular tech work that I do. However, if YouTube degrades to a point where it's no longer profitable, or it's costing me money, then I need to put more focus back on the repair side of things. Because at the end of the day, I have to keep a roof over my head. Got to make the bare minimum. And your data has no value to me at all. Nothing. That's between you and Google. It has nothing to do with me. And Google, you know, they're paying me a fraction of what they used to pay me 3 and 4 years ago. So that's why I say your data is worth less. I used to make a quarter of a penny per view. So I was making more money with less subscribers and less viewers 2 or 3 years ago than I make today. The channel is 33% larger. My library is 33% larger, meaning if you search for something, there's a 33% greater chance one of my videos will appear than what, you know, now that I have more variety. But all the royalties and payments have gone down. My hope was that I would have such a large library, I could retire and just live off royalties. But if you don't make a video in 90 days, YouTube shuts off your monetization. So you can forget the royalties idea. So YouTube keeps changing the rules, or Google. Payments keep going down, 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 down. And the need to either have your viewers support you or to go out and do what all the other big YouTube channels do. Make deals with big sponsors to promote their products and spout their scripts. You know, that may be a bridge I have to cross at some point and make that decision if I want to go down that road. At this point, you know, I can't state enough. Anything I'm promoting, I truly believe in. RoboForm, Acronis, VIP CDK deals. These are all products I recommend to my clients. They're products I use myself. I've been using them for years and years and years. They're not just some new company that came from out of nowhere. When I recommend $300 data recovery, there is no better data recovery company out there anywhere in the world that I'm aware of that does as good of a job as they do, as fast as they do it, and for anywhere near as cheap as they do it. So if I'm promoting a product, I truly believe in it. Now, some product that I truly believe in wants to pay me to read their script. That's the ideal scenario. Or like I said, if there's enough money in making a commercial that one of these companies can use to put as an ad in, you know, other YouTube channels, tech YouTube channels. But again, that's not why I created the channel. That's not why I do. But now when it has to do with survival, it's like, what am I willing to sacrifice? And my question to you is, what are you willing to sacrifice? Some of you have sacrificed quite a bit. Some of you have sacrificed nothing. That's fine. At this point, it's all purely voluntary. But I can tell you, those who have made the sacrifice, those who have contributed, like I said, in Amazon gift cards, PayPal, memberships, super chats, the cost of the content, half of this content, 50% of the content I'm making would not happen if not for these folks. Mark Gaines is another one. Mark Gaines just contributed 10 pounds. He says, thank you for the offer, Carey. I didn't subscribe to get stuff. I subscribe because I love the content and I love to support the channel. Well, right on. And I thank you for that. Thank you so much. But the content costs money to make. So, and even if the content was free to make, I still have to pay the rent and the electricity and all the things required to make the content. Nobody's paying that bill for me. So keep all that in mind. Nobody's obligated to pay for anything on this channel. It's all purely voluntary. And the hope is that that voluntary status is all that's needed. But should it change, I may not be left with any choice. And that'll be either turn it membership only or turn it into a hobby, like many of you do a video a month, you know? But I am trying to do what I love and get paid for it. That's what I'm trying to do. And I always thought it would grow and grow and grow. I never saw this coming where it would start shrinking. So the channel's growing. The memberships, not the memberships, the subscribers are growing. Everything's growing, but the payments are going down. You'd think if it was growing, the payments would grow too. But unfortunately, the videos continue to be worth less just because there's so much more content, so many more creators. There's so many more people that have to share the revenue. I'm hoping eventually that'll shake out so that the hardcore creators like me, the ones who've been doing it and are in it for the right reasons, versus the ones who are just doing it because they want to be famous or they want to be influencers. They don't care. Like, what kind of video should I make? Like, if you've got to ask that question, you shouldn't be making videos. It's like a painter saying, what should I paint? It's like an artist saying, what should I create? You're the artist. That's the creation part is what makes you the artist. That's the part of you that's supposed to come. Asking somebody else what you should create isn't an artist. That's just a contractor at that point. Lana Joe said, wish I could help with dollars every day. SSA did not make me rich. No. And again, I don't expect it. Anybody who contributes, I'm always appreciative. That's why I always shout their names out and say thank you. It's important to me to acknowledge to everybody those few who make that sacrifice. And not everybody can afford it. It may not be a choice for many people. It may not be just cheap. They just might not have it. Totally understand. And that's why my videos have always been free. I hate the idea that somebody wants to be a technician, but to get the job, the employer says they have to have experience or education. But to get the education, they have to have money to pay for the education. But the way they're going to get the money is by having a job to get the money so they can pay for the education, but the job won't hire them without education or the experience. And how else do you get the experience? So I thought, if I can make the videos for free, everybody worldwide, I can't make you interested, but if you are interested, I can teach you. And while I'm not claiming to turn anybody into a computer tech, I can at least give you some basic knowledge and set some basic expectations about what the job entails and what the work is involved. And then once you find that out, you might decide it's not what you thought it was. Because if all you're doing is watching these other YouTube channels with big tech creators that are just hobbyists and media companies, then you're just watching advertising. So if you want to, that's what you want to do, is make advertising videos. Well, don't let me get in your way. There's nothing wrong with it. But that's not what I'm doing here. It's not really, the sound of that isn't appealing to me. PSC Computers with $19.99 in Super Chat says, I appreciate it, Carey. We've recently started making more content for our channel, and so we appreciate what it takes to do what you do. It's much appreciated. Well, thank you for the support. And again, the support means a lot to me. You guys have no idea. YouTube is, you think it's frustrating. You think that, me watching it should be payment enough for my data. Believe me, I'm in agreement with you. Wouldn't that be great if the world worked that way? But it doesn't. And because it doesn't, whether you watch a video or you don't, isn't really making any difference. Remember, as I started earlier, the less profit a company is making for you, the less the company is willing to do anything, nor can the company afford to. You know what I'm saying? Like, somebody's got to pay for that. And companies are much more willing to take a loss when they're originally getting started, you know, building an audience. But once they've built that audience, prices go up. Look at the price of Spotify, Netflix, everything. You know, they bring you in on a low price, and then the renewals are where they're making their money. I think I missed an earlier generous contribution, kicking myself because I meant to get back to it, and I'm only just now remembering. It was 3D Everything, contributed $50 in Super Chat. It says, thank you for teaching. Sorry, I didn't acknowledge that earlier. I saw it scroll by and I'm like, oh, I got to get to that as soon as I finish my thought. It's taking me this long. Thank you, 3D Everything. A shout out once again to everybody who has contributed during today's broadcast, which includes Paul O'Brien, Peter Laycock, Ben Laird and Rick Lakes, Planet Cryos and Gregory Howard, Press Any Key and David Graham, Mike Visions and Mark Wolferts, 3D Everything and Peter VZ, Mark Gaines, PSC Computers, Missouri. And thank you to everybody who has become a new member or is renewing your memberships here. That includes Michael Dane Jr. And also thank you for the update on your dad. It's all good news. Danny Kloyman is also a member, brand new member. Welcome in, Danny. Charles Eslick and 3D Everything are both renewing now for month number 17 on their memberships, which is so flattering. Thank you guys so much for continuing to support the channel. And to our new members, thank you for giving it a shot. Be sure and check out all the Monday videos that are members only videos. You can go back and watch the ones you've missed. Michael Shaw contributes $20 in Super Chat. He says, Carey, thanks again for your help. Yeah, Michael reached out to me in an email with a problem. And if you are a member, always feel free to reach out to me with any issues you might be trying to resolve. And always please identify yourself in the email to me as a member so I know to prioritize responding to you. I get a lot of emails. And most of the emails I get are coming just from, you know, people I don't know. They're people that might be new to the channel, or, you know, they want help with something, but they're not necessarily helping me. So because there's only so many hours in the day and I get so many requests, whether it's Facebook messages, emails, etc., I don't really have a whole lot of choice in the matter but to prioritize my time to my customers and, of course, members who support me. I consider you the same as customers when you guys email me. I'm going to respond to you every time. If you're somebody that has a technical support question, you're not a member, ask your question during the live videos. That's what the live videos are for people to engage in that way, to get help and get help from the entire community. Otherwise, what you're trying to do, and I don't know if people realize this or not, but you're effectively asking me to provide technical support to you for free, and you haven't even so much as introduced yourself to me. So as a result, I generally don't answer those emails, and I also don't have time. So for the people who make sacrifices for me, I make sacrifices back. And for everybody else, the videos are free, the interaction in the chat room is free, and I encourage folks to ask their questions during the live chat. But if they want my personal assistance, then I have to make sure that the people who have sacrificed for me get my time first and foremost. And there's tons of emails every day. So I don't want to discourage you from emailing me. If you're a member, you should feel, you're not bothering me. It's not any trouble. Just identify yourself as a member so I know. Because if you don't, you may not get a response. If I don't recognize your name or you're using a different name in email than you use on the screen, if I can't make that correlation, you likely won't get a response from me. So, and you've got to keep in mind, I get a lot of companies that send me emails wanting me to review their products, and their products can be the most ridiculous things. Keyboards. Actually, there's a really cool keyboard I should show you, and then we'll wrap things up here because we're going to get on 3. I want you to take a look at this. I stumbled on this. This was one of my YouTube squirrel moments. Let me go over to let's go to YouTube. Wrong keyboard. Let's go to YouTube. And what was it called? Let me try and find it first. The Flux keyboard. No. This keyboard has an LCD screen behind it. And every button is a small LCD screen. So you can change the fonts, you can change the language, you can change what the button does. The buttons are magnetic levitation buttons, so you can adjust the amount of pressure required to, to your preference. And they have different plates that go on top of the screen. So the keyboard is like a plate that fits on top, and they have different ones. And then above the keyboard, they have these different little plates that fit in above the keyboard and are modular in the sense that you can swap them out for things that you want, for volume control or media controls, et cetera, et cetera. That's a $450 keyboard. It's not out yet. I believe it's made in Japan or will be made in Japan. But now if somebody wants me to review that keyboard, sign me up. But usually the keyboards I'm getting asked about are, little chintzy things, nothing special. And, if it's from a big manufacturer like Logitech, that's a different story, but they're often manufacturers I've never heard of. And I don't see any reason why I'd want the keyboard to be, any reason that it's different enough to justify making a video on. So in any event, yeah, you can check out that video if you want to learn more about it. It looks fascinating. Some of the other channels, that I would recommend, there's Max Miller. He's actually quite popular. And it's called Tasting History with Max Miller. And he makes a bunch of recipes back from the old Roman days and, hundreds of years ago. How people used to eat. He tries and recreate these recipes as authentically as possible with the same ingredients they would have used, using ancient recipes. And who's another one I can recommend? Like Steve Leto. Again, he's pretty popular. He's a Michigan attorney, and he can do 2-3 videos a day, and he's reading articles in the news about legal matters and then giving you his opinion on it from a lawyer's perspective. Yeah, he's doing pretty good. 441,000 subscribers. I'm trying to think who else. Of course, Jim AJ3N has his YouTube channel. Our friend Planet Cryos has his YouTube channel. And these guys all make really good content. If you're not watching them, you're missing out. All Planet Cryos here. Our friend Doug Betts, live Windows training with Doug Betts. I watch him all the time. Right here. That's all live interaction with viewers. the deal guy. Again, he's pretty popular. Why does it say Dell guy? Deals guy. Let's try that. His videos are fantastic. 2.4 million subscribers. But he's not making any commercials. Everything he does here, he walks through these stores with his phone or camera. And he's not paid by the stores in any way. So he's making the videos independently. He's also a news anchor, I believe, in customer advocacy, you know, finding deals. He's very professional at what he does. And if you watch closely, you know, he always wears a shirt and tie. But every once in a while, if there's a reflection, you'll see he's wearing shorts. And they kind of made a joke about that on the news, that he was, you know, not an anchor, but forget what it's called, contributing. I can't think of the word. Anyway, he's really, really good, and it can let you know about deals going on at Sam's Club, Costco, Aldi, Dollar Store, etc. So he's one I enjoy. I also enjoy Aging Wheels. This guy's fantastic, very down to earth, and has some really unique content and very clever editing techniques. And I think he's doing everything on his own. I think he's doing all the editing. He's obviously the script writer, the cameraman. You know, he's a one-man deal like I am. And yeah, pretty close and similar in size. If you're interested in cars at all, he has some really bizarre older cars that he shows in great detail. Who else? Got to be one more good one. Thinking. Well, of course, Dawood does tech stuff. One of my favorites is really about gaming. It's mostly gaming focused, about PCs and what if scenarios regarding different video cards, different configurations. Can you get away with using a cheaper monitor, or what is this cheap monitor? Is it worth buying if you're a gamer? Like here, was Alienware really better before Dell bought them? He buys an old machine and tears it down. He's hilarious. He's entertaining. His videos are usually under 20 minutes long. So if you haven't checked him out and you enjoy gaming related content with humor, it's not too serious. He's not very technical, and he admits as much, which makes it all the more enjoyable. It's like an everyman's perspective who just really likes gaming a lot. And okay, let me think of one more. There's got to be one. Like I said, YouTube has really been my go-to really since the pandemic. Network TV has just been a letdown from just a couple of good shows on it. Like Rick and Morty's back on, and I'm enjoying that. But yeah, to me, it's the good shows are few and far between these days. Even movies, they haven't been that interesting to me either. One more good YouTube channel. Doesn't have to be tech related. Oh, this guy is amazing. Professor of Rock. If you're at all interested in rock and roll hits of the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and today, this guy does his research. He gets interviews with the artists, one-on-one interviews with music legends, quite honestly. And it's great to hear directly from the singer or the songwriter, the band member. And he's very professional at what he does. His questions are well thought out. The research he does is very impressive. And his videos, they average about a half an hour in length, generally speaking. And there's just some fascinating trivia, things you may not have known about some of your favorite artists or favorite songs. I can't recommend Professor of Rock. And so there's a few ideas for you to explore, since YouTube's recommendations have been sucking for me. So they probably suck for you too. So these are some of the things I'll do when I'm looking at YouTube, some of the channels I'll look at. And that puts us right at 3 hours. So that'll wrap it up for me. Thanks again for everybody for supporting the channel, even for hanging out with me here on in our live chat room and your interaction. I appreciate all the interaction, all of your support and kindness. I never get enough. John Williams mentions Explaining Computers. It's another great YouTube channel. Absolutely Explaining Computers. A British gentleman does a very good job, but it's very slow. He speaks in a very slow way. And I kind of drives me crazy sometimes. I'm like, hurry up, speed it up. But his information is very good. His presentation is very good. He's very knowledgeable. And yeah, a great recommendation, Explaining Computers YouTube channel. And I'm sure there's lots and lots more. Oh, LRCX wants me to check my email. I've heard my phone going off a few times, so let me do that, and then I'll say goodbye. So very quickly, what have I missed? Oh, got a message from Patrick Kennedy at Serve the Home. I'll return his message later. $10 in PayPal comes from Elizabeth Dodd. Beth says, I love your content and your ethics. I want to support you anytime I can. Every little bit helps. That is awesome, Beth. Thank you. I hope you're enjoying the new computer. I hope. Barry Klein contributes an Amazon gift card of $25. He said, here's my monthly supplementary contribution, free of YouTube and PayPal taxes. I'm unlikely going to create a YouTube video because people would see my face. There's plenty of YouTube content creators that only show their hands. If you're serious about that. He says, I'd be the first channel in YouTube history with a negative subscription number. I enjoy your content. Well, thank you, Barry. And I appreciate having you, man. You're a pleasure to talk with in the chat room. And I appreciate your generosity and your kind words. And there, Larry contributes, LRCX contributes $25 via PayPal. He says, here's just a bit to help out. Right on. Thank you, Larry. Once again, all of this adds up. And so even, regardless of the size of the contribution, the fact that any contribution is made represents fewer than 1% of the viewers. So it means a lot to me. You guys that step up like that represent a very tiny minority. And I think it's really important for the audience to be aware of it, that your contributions are what make these videos possible. Nobody is obligated to pay anything. If you can support the channel, you get paid back with more variety and more content that I can produce. And of course, when people contribute like that, my email is always available. You can call me if they have questions, because at that point, they're more similar to customers than they are viewers. And of course, I want to let them know how much I appreciate their support by going above and beyond for me. I want to go above and beyond for them. So again, nothing obligated. It's all appreciated. It's never expected. And that's the secret sauce behind what's making this channel work. So in case you were curious, that's how it all goes down. My thanks again to all of the folks who joined in the chat room today, all my friends in blue, all those gold badges, those are all members. Folks who are in white, don't be discouraged. If you're new here, you're in white, just be a regular member in the chat. Show that you're a kind person, that you have nice things to say. Basically, don't be a jerk. It's a pretty low bar. And as I start to recognize your name in the chat, I'll turn you blue. But if you're still new to me, I haven't determined whether or not you're blue worthy or not. You've got to be here often enough for me to recognize you. And you've got to participate, or I won't see you in the chat if you don't say anything. But if the things you say are nasty, derogatory, or judgmental, depending on that, you might get booted out. So the world needs more kindness. And kindness takes a little bit more effort than a jerk. So the blue status is something that helps me identify in the viewers. When a comment comes in that might be taken one of two different ways, I always assume the benefit of the doubt for somebody in blue. Somebody in white, I don't know if what their intention was with their comment, to get attention, to be helpful, or to be derogatory. So once I can establish a level of consistent behavior from somebody in white, I turn them blue. That's all there is to it. So all these folks in blue have earned their blue status through regularly participating. Doesn't have to be every show, but often enough that I recognize. And that when they do participate, they're nice people. You're rest assured, all those names in blue, they are all verified nice people. Names in green are members and are obviously supporters of the channel, which implies they're nice people if they're supporting the channel. And anybody in white, it's anything goes. We haven't established that yet. So that's what those colors designate. You shouldn't be intimidated by them or anything else. You should expect, if you're getting a comment from somebody in blue, that it's going to be a nice comment. So I hope if you haven't joined the chat before, you will consider joining it in the future and say hello. This is unlike any other community on the internet. If there is somebody being a jerk, they're going to get booted. That's how we keep it friendly here. It's its own reward to be friendly, quite honestly. Person being friendly is the one who gets the best part of the reward. The rest of us also receive the reward of others being friendly, but the person being friendly gets the best reward. So thank you again for watching. Thank you again for all of the contributions and the support. I will see you all again tomorrow. Every Friday at 1 o'clock, I always go live. 1 o'clock Arizona time. That's currently 12 p.m. Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern. Likely later tonight, I'll put this in a 200R with a power supply. I don't think I'm going to film that part of it. I have another one of these exactly identical that I have to build. And my EK water block all-in-one cooler came in. So I want to put that on the 14900K build and see if it's going to cool that chip. I've got a Be Quiet cooler, all-in-one cooler I want to put on the 12900K, see what's going to cool that chip. I've got Serve the Home's server that was damaged in shipping. Just about all fixed. I've got to do some cable management and hook up the USB ports. Then that's done. I've got Gregory Howard's little coffee machine computer. That's what we call it, the coffee machine computer. Finish up, get cabled up, and get shipped out. I hope to get that out by Monday. And I've had some folks reach out to me about building computers now. And the problem we have right now is we're very, very close to Thanksgiving. Once Black Friday hits, shipping rates go up, shipping delays go up, and the temporary shipping help, like UPS is hiring 60,000 people for holiday help. I don't want to ship anything. First of all, I don't want to go to the store and wait in line of, everybody shipping everything. So the wait for me is longer. I do not want to ship anything very far because the likelihood for damage is greater if it's between Thanksgiving and the first of the year. My request is that you wait. If you're on the East Coast, if you're several states away from me, wait until after the new year. Shipping rates will be cheaper, the shipping time will be reduced, and the likelihood for damage will be reduced. The shippers get overwhelmed after Thanksgiving, and it doesn't slow down until probably a good week into the new year before they get caught up. So if you're local or you're not that far, it's not a problem. But if you, like most people that are ordering computers from me, they're on the other side of the country, and there's not enough time right now for me to get anything built and completed from a new project standpoint to be able to get it out before Thanksgiving. So while I appreciate the inquiries, trust me, I'm doing this for your benefit. Shipping rates go up, the shipping times take longer, and the likelihood for damage is far greater. So usually, and this is pretty consistent with me, from Thanksgiving until the first of the year, try to keep things as local as possible and try to avoid shipping as much as possible, at least as far as a full-size computer. The mini computers I'm not worried about. Those are pretty bulletproof as far as shipping goes. And any difference in shipping costs, because they're so small and light, is not as significant as a big tower computer. So just so you know, that's what's coming up. And again, as a reminder, if you're a veteran, If you've never won anything from this channel before and you are in the United States, we do have some mini PCs just like this to give away. HP mini PC. Don't let its size fool you. This may be one of the fastest computers you've ever used in your life. These are business class computers, not the crap they sell at the retail stores. These are off-lease used computers. They're already optimized and tuned. They're quiet, super, super fast. And they're good with Windows 10 right up until Windows 10 expires at the end of 2025, at which point you're either going to want to put a different operating system like Linux on it. They are not Windows 11 compatible, but they do buy you some time with regards to, being safe online, which I think is important. Nominate yourself, nobody else. Nominate yourself. Tell us why we should select you in the comments below. Happy Veterans Day if I don't see you before then. For all of our veterans, thank you for your service. It's appreciated more than I can express in words. And for those in need, if you're a family in need, times are tight, even though this is a veteran giveaway. If we don't get many veterans nominating themselves, then secondarily, we will select people in need. And let us know why you should be selected. You have to be in the US though. Thank you for watching, and I will see you all again tomorrow at 1 o'clock Phoenix time. Once again, that's 12 p.m. Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern. And until next time, bye for now.